All right, Chris. The show opened. We didn't used to talk about Dynamite opening with a talking segment. That used to be something AEW fans wore as a badge of honor. We don't spend 20 minutes talking at the start of shows. We get right to the action, and they did that Saturday night for Grand Slam. But tonight we got MJF and Hangman Page going back and forth. I thought last week and just kind of recently, MJF and Hangman were finding a groove that I want them to remain in. I still feel that way after this promo. Let's stay in this realm of their personas. Let's not get tricky or fancy. Let's not do shoot works and meta stuff. And to me, this was a promo that largely successfully, tiny little critiques, but largely successfully showed off why they can't turn Hangman heel, because Hangman is just so appealing, and he talked about his history and what he stands for, and why MJF is so much better as a heel and didn't work as a babyface. And it was a little meta in the sense that it got into who's the face of the brand, and like you're looking for approval and this kind of thing. But I thought it worked on a personal level in terms of tapping into what drives both of them. And so, yeah, honestly, I think this is they're back in a zone that I think works well for both of them. Fans are willing to forgive Hangman for some pretty heinous things, and fans are always willing to really hate on MJF and really enjoy seeing a babyface show him up. So I'm curious for your thoughts. Do you think I'm painting too good of a picture of where they stand now compared to where they were a month or two or 3 or 4 ago?
No, I'm definitely in the same spot as you on this one. I think they stayed out of the gutter. That's the first note I had here. They stayed out of the gutter. And that's so important given how tawdry MJF has been.
Exactly.
There were a couple of things I could complain about. We had the annoying mention of, why do the fans like you? And it's like, well, I mean, do you really want to be bringing that up? Because that's an excellent question we still don't have an answer for. But I think it was a good back and forth. MJF started with a very basic promo where he just did his normal heel shtick and gave some background as to why they don't like each other. And it just got better from there. They yelled when they had to. They lowered the volume when it made sense. They didn't go anywhere except what we've seen on TV. Even the talk about Hangman having everything handed to him and being the golden boy and the chosen one made sense in the context of what we've seen on TV, because he was hanging out with the Young Bucks. He was hanging out with Omega. And we know from canon on TV that those guys are the leadership of the company. So it wasn't like you needed any outside knowledge to understand why that hit home. Both of them found points to drill home on each other that related to stuff we've seen on TV, and they both touched nerves. It did everything you wanted it to do.
I think you brought up some good points, and one of them is it is canon that Hangman was the chosen one. It goes a little against canon to say he's friends, that he was friends with the Bucks just because the Bucks are heels and they're gone, and they kind of don't want to talk about them until they return. That seems to be the approach they're taking, other than a clip from Japan or something. So, so it's always dangerous when you are on the intention has become for Hangman to be cheered. They've realized fans are into him. And we'll get into what Zach Barber said in his AEW Feud tracker today that I thought was spot on as far as Hangman goes. And he has been. I think what Zach has been contending has borne out to be true. And so I'll get into that. But it is a little dangerous, even if we can justify it within canon, for the heel to say you were the chosen one when this company started. And then I'm not even saying I would scratch it from the script. It's just risky to start saying things that ring that true, that could get people to go, well, God, yeah, that's right. We didn't really choose him. He was thrust upon us, because that was a problem with, Roman Reigns, for instance. But I just think, I say it's a little risky, but I think with Hangman, the fans have been cheering him despite their best attempts. I assume they were honest, sincere attempts to turn him heel and get him booed. Somewhere along the line, they're like, no, we got to get him. We have to get him on a journey from being a tweener back to a babyface. MJF's the right opponent for it. So that worked. Do you want to jump in on that, and then I'll bring up a couple of other points?
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that, he was the chosen one, but he could easily fire back and say it was the fans that chose me. It was these people that chose me, because unlike Roman Reigns, unlike John Cena, when they were thrust upon us, we didn't reject him at any point.
Unlike Cody Rhodes, who isn't here anymore, the fans didn't reject me.
Right, well, and I mean, I think they're going to start to reject him where he is now, but that's for a different show.
That's a fun discussion for another day. It's all
But
Jay's fault. He's too popular.
It's definitely, yes. Yeah. Yeet. The whole point of Hangman, and I did read Zach's column, as everybody should. I think it's possible to be descending into madness and becoming a lunatic and still turn heel. I don't think his point in his column, and I see he's made it here as well, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I don't know how you justify the things he did as anything but a heel turn, but yes, it was because of the storyline arc of him losing everything, not being able to get it back, and slowly losing his mind. That doesn't mean that what he did was right. It just explains it.
Yes. I totally think that is a fair framing of it. I'll read Zach's super chat here. As I said on my column, Hangman's arc is about one man's descent into madness and his journey back, not a heel turn. We have to stop talking about it that way. It was bigger than that. I mean, Chris, are you buying the notion from Zach that it wasn't an attempted heel turn and that from the beginning it was a descent into madness that was in a separate category from being a traditional heel, and they had their eye on a moment like this, if not this, as the planned story arc when the fans would finally be given permission to cheer him. Hangman would sort of come around again, because I didn't hear enough in this promo of Hangman addressing that specifically. To me, if that was a journey, I think we would have had a couple boxes checked more explicitly. And I'm curious for Zach's thoughts on this too, a little more explicitly that, I mean, you don't have to literally say I descended into madness, but you could acknowledge, almost with a verbal wink and a nod, just going, people have seen where I've gone and what I've done, and I'm coming out of that place, and you are pulling me back to a place where I feel I belong, which is standing up to blank blanks like you. And I think you could have tied that all together a little bit better. And it's like with the Mariah May, Tony Storm stuff, there's sometimes that bridge within the song of the storyline that is missing. And they just kind of jump to where they think people should land if they've been paying super close attention to everything, as opposed to just laying it out a little bit more with some words. Your thoughts?
I think with AEW, what they do a lot is that they write the end of the story, and a lot of good stories start at the end. Then they fill in the first few chapters, and then the middle part sort of gets kind of muddied, and they just sort of hand wave. When I choreograph numbers for when I'm performing, I often do the same thing. I know I have beats in the story in the number that I have to hit, and then I'll just improvise the rest of it, which works fine when you're doing a solo performance for a crowd of 100 people. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing something that relies on a bunch of people in front of a couple of million, you can't really leave that much up to improvisation and chance.
Yep.
I haven't seen enough to give me the confidence that this plan has unfolded exactly the way Tony Khan wanted. I haven't seen enough of his booking following logical patterns that I'm willing to give him that much of the benefit of the doubt. Do I think they had the descent and rise planned out? Sure. But I don't know that they foresaw the inability to keep him heel.
Yep. So if we look at BJF says in the chat, I love the Hangman MJF promo. It got them back in their promo places as faces and heels. And you know, I kind of compared this to like the New Day situation, and I still don't buy that it was a good plan or the plan to have Kofi and Xavier go at each other so fiercely and viciously and hit those really personal things, and then a week later just unite happily because, well, Big E did something months ago that suddenly they realized bothered them greatly, greatly enough to set aside their differences. I'm still not buying that. I don't think it was the best way to tell the story, but to a degree, all's well that ends well. And it did end well. And their promo Monday was fun, and they're good heels and all that. Same thing with Kenny and Omega, you know, like, oh, we hate each other, I'm going to say vile things about you. And then 5 minutes later, they're you know, celebrating. I would have toned down our vitriol towards each other if 5 or 10 minutes later you're going to be fighting together in the you know, Wonder Twin powers in upcoming weeks, working together to fend off the Don Callis family. So, but again, in a way, all's well that ends well. I mean, I don't think people are going to be like, I would chant Kenny, but you know what? I don't really buy that moment where Kenny's, you know, like, but that doesn't mean you don't want to clean it up. So with the Hangman MJF stuff, I think we're landing in a good place. I think there's room to look back and say, you know what? This is actually kind of part of a recurring pattern with AEW where either they have brilliant ideas and they don't, and master plans and story arcs, and there's just a little bit missing that needs to be subtracted and added to make it work. And there's room for growth as a booker and as a company to do that. Or they're listening to the fans, which isn't a bad thing, and going, we got to call an audible. We got to go do something different or do something quicker with Hangman than we planned. And this is a good way to get MJF back into the role he's supposed to be in. Yes, we have too many baby faces in a way, but we can't keep fighting the headwind with Hangman. But whatever, you know what? Whatever the reason is, they've landed in a good place, and I think they're in a good spot.
I agree. I think it's important to listen to the fans, and we've seen AEW has been willing to do that. I mean, Swerve Strickland's the perfect example. They listened to the fans and gave him a title run that I don't think was in the cards for him originally. And we're starting to see it in WWE as well with Jey Uso winning the Rumble. What you have here is Hangman has been perennially a fan favorite. And sure, like, our job is to analyze and pick the weaknesses out of what we see on TV. I greatly enjoyed the promo, and it didn't particularly bother me that Hangman is a face after burning down a man's house. I know that they should have cleared it up. I would have liked Hangman to say, like you said, look, I was in a dark place. I did some things that I wasn't proud to have done, but I did it because that's who I was at the time.
And I've made private amends. You can even say that.
I don't know how you make amends for all the things he did, though.
He could write a big check out. And I don't know. Because, I mean, Swerve did some pretty nasty stuff, too. So, yeah, I mean, but maybe you're better off not even getting into that, you know.
Yeah, I think if you say I was in a dark place, I'm out of that dark place now, and I've learned that the person that you are today is more about being better than you were yesterday. Something along those lines. Like, you can make it so that he shows that he knows what he did was wrong, and he can't change it, but he's just going to be better moving forward. And all of that would be great, but I don't think it's necessary because, you know, there's a man who used to work in wrestling who used to say, nobody remembers that, pal. And I think we're almost to that point now. I think all the fans want to see is this feud, and they really don't care what happens in order to get it.
You said that there was some soft talking, some yelling, some normal talking throughout the promo, and it was a good mix. I will enter into evidence that I think the high point of MJF's delivery on the promo was at the end when he was talking softly. And that's when everyone leans in and they go, oh, what's he saying? Because he's talking softly. And I would, if I were him, I would do that more. I think it's more effective. I have a bias against yelling just personally. I think it's overdone. It's like saying bitch too much. It's like doing breath bumps too much. It's like, I mean, there's just things that are tropes that are done too much. And I think yelling is sort of a hack way to make it seem like you're super intense. And my criticism of MJF yelling are two parts. One, he overmodulates the microphone. So it's just legitimately audibly unpleasant because he overdoes it, because he has such strong vocal cords. But number two, he's way too freaking talented to have to rely on that. There are people who are average and they yell to make up for it, and I would be less hard on them. It's like an underachiever in math class. He can be good, he's just not applying himself. He's naturally gifted. He doesn't need to be yelling. So I'll just leave that on the table and say I thought the yelling was a weaker part of the promo. He didn't overmodulate as badly as usual, but I can't not give this much praise to the promo and not say I'd still dial it back, because that final 20 seconds of him talking was the best delivery, and it was the most effective delivery of what he was saying. And I would study that and replicate that and lean on that a lot more. If I'm MJF, I yell once every 4 to 6 months when it really counts, and people go, whoa, this must be a big deal. Chris?
I think I largely agree with you. The yelling, though, this would have been once in the 4 to 6 months where it was necessary, because there were some really personal notes being hit from a storyline standpoint. They didn't go beyond any lines or anything. But your point about the soft talking, I do a lot of speaking at work, and also just on the side. I'm doing a panel discussion on Sunday, actually. And I've actually learned from watching pro wrestling and from people like Jake the Snake that when you need to capture the audience of an entire room, or you're in a meeting and you want to make sure that your points get across, you just lower your tone. You just lower your volume slightly. And then people have to lean in to hear you. Like, I never thought that pro wrestling would help me in my professional life, because I don't work in pro wrestling, unfortunately. But it's such a great lesson. And I think both men made really good use of that tonight.
Yeah. Okay, we can talk more about this, and I want to interject some of the chat room comments, too, that have gone on during our conversation. We'll table that for a little bit later in the show, because I want to introduce the show, but I also want to bring on a correspondent who attended Grand Slam Australia on Saturday night after introductions here. We'll talk to August Strachan in a minute. He sent in spoilers, so we had the spoilers on the show on on Saturday in the lead up to the show actually airing after the NBA All-Star festivities. We do on PWTorch.com right now have a ratings breakdown. I recommend people check that out if you're curious how it did. The caveat, one of the caveats being it also aired on, well, no, did it? I actually don't know if this one aired on Max or not.
They said it was on Max.
Okay. I just didn't check, and it was later than normal, so I was like, I know everyone wanted to air live on Max, and I didn't know if I should take that. It wasn't on. I don't want to be wrong on that, but the ratings for Dynamite, for any AEW show this year, I have the caveat of maybe some people are watching on Max, and it's not getting tallied in the TBS and TNT numbers, but they did draw over 500,000, but it was a huge drop-off from the NBA. And they did a terrible job on the NBA, on the closing minutes of the NBA All-Star events, plugging the show. They should have had their ducks in a row on that one and done a better job. And then AEW should have opened with not point the camera at the ring for ring intros. They should have set the stage for at least that match and ideally given us a hook for one of the other matches. They didn't do any of that. It was the least produced, most organically presented show, which is fine on a regular Saturday night when your hardcores are watching. But when you have this massive audience of millions of people who are maybe going to leave the channel on after the NBA festivities end, the plug should have been better. I think it was Kevin Hart. Whoever did the plug, it was very perfunctory and minimal. And then there's a bunch of commercials, and I think they could have done much better. Word got out that they were happy with the number after, the report came out, but I think they could have done better. So I want to throw that out there, but the details on it, the breakdown is on my ratings report at PWTorch.com, including comparisons to past years. The last time they popped a number over 500,000 for Saturday Night Collision, and where it placed in the cable ranking. So lots of details there. I won't report that all here, but I'll point you to the website. So we'll get to an on-site correspondent report in just a moment. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. And we're here after AEW Dynamite, but we're going to talk some Grand Slam Australia too. I'm Wade Keller, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, and the host of various podcasts, including the Wade Keller Post Shows following Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, and a bunch of and the flagship on our Blue Logo show, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast, which featured Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net yesterday, and we talked for a couple hours. Have a VIP exclusive after show that is a freebie on our PWTorch VIP free sample feed. So search PWTorch in your podcast app if you want to hear the full show this week. The VIP show is over there. I'll detail that later if I remember, but I want to keep rolling here. Speaking of the newsletter, the latest issue is out, and it has the headline, Tony Storm beating Mariah May. So still paper copies, everybody. You can get details on that on PWTorch.com/paper copy if you want to look forward to going to your mailbox for once. But you can read the PDF and digital copy with a VIP subscription. Speaking of VIP, I host a variety of VIP shows too that are VIP exclusive, the Wade Keller Hotlines, the Fix with Todd Martin, Everything with Rich and Wade, post pay-per-view roundtables, and more. Full details at PWTorch.com/GoVIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. That includes Wade Keller Hotlines that I record after these post shows where I run down Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown start to finish. Not everybody has time to watch all the hours of primetime wrestling. I cover the primary weeknight shows with a start to finish rundown with added analysis and details. It takes 15 to 25 minutes roughly, and you'll be caught up. So maybe you caught part of the show, didn't catch all of it, or you saw all of it, you just want to know what I thought. That's VIP exclusive, and I know a lot of people rely on that to feel like they're caught up because they can just listen rather than having to read reports or watch the show separately. So one of the benefits, I don't talk about it a ton, but I think it's one of a perk that quite a few people take advantage of. I think, Chris, you're one of them.
Yes, definitely. That's how I keep up with WWE most of the time.
Yep. So speaking of Chris Lansdell is my co-host tonight to help me talk Dynamite, and we'll look back at Grand Slam also. He is a PW Torch contributor, part of the VIP lineup. With is it up to 9 or 10 stars now, your podcast?
It'll be 10 stars when they go back to the Tokyo Dome. Yeah.
There we go. Yes. So it's a VIP exclusive show covering New Japan with Kelly Wells. He also writes reports for PWTorch.com, primarily on New Japan shows. Great to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's been a busy little period for New Japan, and some exciting stuff happening over there, but it's always nice to talk AEW. Todd
Martin was very positive on New Japan recently on The Fix. It's just some interesting changes. I don't want to get off on New Japan. Let's stay focused. But there's actually some interesting, compelling things to think is going on in New Japan right now for the first for the first time or at a higher level than has been the case in a year or two, which is nice to see. And you're looking forward to Gabe Kid beating Max Caster on Saturday. I assume he'll answer the open challenge.
I have notes. About
we'll get into that. All right.
There's some stuff to talk about there.
Awesome. We'll table that. All right. So I spoke about Grand Slam Australia. We did not do any kind of a post show on that. So we're going to incorporate that into tonight's show a bit. Just pretty much a straightforward show with 5 matches, 1 promo, the announcement of this Revolution tournament thing. But not a lot of news coming up. But we'll touch on it. And we're going to start with an outside correspondent who attended on Saturday night. August Strachan?
Strawn. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's Strawn, I promise.
All right. Well, August, it's great to have you on, even though I didn't know how to pronounce your last name. So you, this was your first show that you ever attended, a pro wrestling show?
Yep, absolutely. First time ever. Wasn't able to make it over to Perth for Elimination Chamber, and no one comes here that often, so...
Yes.
For some reason, they chose Brisbane over Sydney or Melbourne or anywhere else. So it was, I had to. I couldn't not.
We won't get into the politics of Australian city rivalries, major metropolitan market rivalries tonight. But yeah, I can sense there's a little bit of that. Well, first, big picture. I've asked this of people who have called in as on-site correspondents before, who was their first show. What surprised you about seeing wrestling in person compared to all that you've watched through television?
First of all, something that I don't know why I thought I would be able to, but the fact that I saw them come out, I saw Nigel and Tony come out, and after they sat at the desk, it was just nothing. For some reason, I expected to hear them over some kind of loudspeakers throughout the audience or something.
I
saw them down there and I just heard nothing. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll find out later.
Yep.
Like, that was the first kind of funny thing that I realized, but after that, just the vibes and feeling of sitting in that audience and feeling everyone around me kind of just like that same feeling of anticipation that was in me being shared with everyone else and erupting over when, we heard Cope's theme, which, Lord, everyone saw that we loved that for no apparent reason. Like, the preparation for Tony Storm to appear was wild.
So tell me, was there any, was there anything that was a letdown besides not getting to hear Tony Schiavone during the show? Was there anything that, from a production standpoint or being in person, anything that was like, I was kind of let down by that? And then we'll get into specifics.
Letdowns? I suppose it's a good sign that nothing is coming to mind immediately in terms of a letdown.
I was just thinking I missed like replays or I don't know where you sat. That is true. Like, I don't know where you sat, but it's like you got to pay full attention. You can't hit the rewind button or get replays.
Yeah. There was a few moments where I was like, I just like looking down at my phone to like check the time or something. I look up and like everyone's screaming like, crap, I missed something and I don't have a button to go and check what it was. And there was a surprising few amount of replays overall. I think there was one in the Tony Storm Ryan May match, and that's the only one that I'm remembering overall. So
yep, that's cool. Well, by the way, Kyle Fassel in the chat says, "Great hair, August." All right.
Thank you. I did nothing.
Yeah, he asked, "What's your hair care routine?" So I guess nothing can be the key when you have that head hair. All right. People listening to us on the podcast side are like, "What's going on?" Now I gotta check it out on YouTube. All right. So as far as you attended the show live, what was there anything off air? Anything that we didn't see in terms of? I know there's also an ROH taping, so that kind of incorporates into the question. Yeah. But was there like Tony Khan, did he address the crowd? Was there any other promo or anything that you now realize watching the show back and reading about it that did not air?
Yeah. So first of all, Tony Khan did come out at the top of the Grand Slam show for a very Tony Khan speech in which there wasn't that much said, but he said a lot. So the main part about it was he was just thanking the audience for being there, the support that we showed the ROH show, which was a very good treat to also have, since it was announced 2 days, I think, before the show that we were getting it. It's like, oh, great, cool, I guess. But he came out, thanked us all for having such a good reaction, and kind of the last thing he said was, I suppose, came around to the end of the night when he said to us, because of all the support you've shown, like, this is our first time in Australia, but it definitely won't be the last. Which at first I thought was just him saying a nicety to all of us, being like, you're such a great audience, keep it going. But then it turned around that he announced an Australia show in 2026 that we have no details for, but we know is coming. Other than that, right at the end of the show, Toni Storm gave us an off-air speech that was entirely out of character.
Oh, wow.
She thanked the audience. She pointed out the exact seat that she sat in when she attended her first ever wrestling show in this venue. She
was it your
told
chair?
us that. Sadly, no. It was on the
that'd been
total
awesome.
opposite side of the arena. I would have screamed. I
believe it.
Told us that her outfit was made by her mum, and she ended with possibly my favorite thing of asking if there was anyone who was traveling back to the Gold Coast that night because she needed a ride home.
I love it. That is great.
Which it was incredible.
Did you? Oh, go ahead, Chris. You got a question?
I was just going to say Gold Coast isn't that far from Brisbane anyway. It's just an hour or so down the road, but everything's far in Australia. So,
Chris, let me throw to you for a question for August.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, I guess, to compare because it's your first event ever. But I find with Australian events and British events are the same, with the chanting and the crowds really getting into it. With all the events you've seen on TV from the US, did the atmosphere in the building feel what you expected it to feel, or was it just on a different level? Was it a letdown?
I knew we would be loud. The Australian kind of thing that it seems to be is just in the streets we're decently quiet. The second we get to any kind of sports show, we scream at the ever top of our lungs constantly. And this, I expected it, I was still surprised. And I was surprised by the people that we cheered for, because across all the matches, including ROH, there was, I think, only 2 matches that didn't have an Australian presence in them. And they were both in the ROH show, now that I'm thinking about it. One of them being Learning Tree versus Outrunners and Bandito. And the other
We're not sure on
Athena.
Bandito. He could be Australian.
He could be.
That's true. I'm actually not sure. And the other being Alex Windsor versus Athena. When we had the Learning Tree match, the audience for some reason picked Big Bill as our child, I guess, because we cheered him so much to the point it looked like he was confused about why. Like, we had a shot of his face and he was kind of looking up at everyone being like, why am I the one you've picked? Chris Jericho's right there. Like, every time anyone who wasn't him got in the ring, we would start chanting, "You're not Bill," over and over till we eventually got him back in the ring. So, yeah, it was. And then when we got to actual Grand Slam, it was something different. It was a different level entirely with how much we either adored or hated our own stars. We, first straight off the bat, we went absolutely wild for Kenny and Will. But we played along with the story of Kyle Fletcher being the heel, and that we chanted against him constantly despite him being the home hero. And so we played along with that story a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than that, every Australian got cheered for the roof to fly off. Especially like Harley Cameron, Toni Storm were met with some absolutely massive responses.
Did the Toni Storm Mariah May match feel like, and I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but did it feel like it absolutely positively needed to be the final match of that show?
Yes. I mean, my tagline right now is Tony Storm. You will never hear me say anything bad about Tony Storm ever in my life. This was the match that sold me to buy my ticket in the first place. I was, for a while, hemming and hawing about, like, well, this isn't a pay-per-view show. This, like, I'm not sure how much they're really going to give to it. The second we had that match announced, the fact that it was for the title, I knew I had to go because this was the match of the event.
Chris, jump in with a question for August.
From watching on TV, I mean, obviously the opening match was spectacular, but there was a lot of it that might have been a little difficult to see in person, and the same goes for the Death Riders and Copeland and Jay White. I was shocked that Jay White got a great reaction in Australia. It's not like Kiwis are your favorite people, but then again, he isn't English. Did you find any of that surprising or disappointing, that you missed chunks of the action because of the nature of it?
Yeah, so there were points, even in matches that didn't spill out to the outside of the match, where, like, they were on the complete opposite side of the ring, and, like, you know, they were being on the ground behind it, or, like, leaning up against the railings, and I would have to pray and hope that the cameramen looking up at the big screens are doing the right thing and showing us what's going on. But then I'd kind of be watching the screens and get caught in watching them, then I'd be like, wait, no, they're live right in front of me. Look down at the people doing the thing. So, yeah, there were a few points where, like, I think the worst offender was the Brisbane Brawl match, when we had, like, Cope and Castagnoli up in the seats with us, up on the staircases, which, with how the Brisbane Entertainment Centre is structured, if they're down there in that space, unless you're on the edge of that staircase, you cannot see them at all. There was nothing. Like, I got to see, like, maybe, like, this amount of Cope when he was standing on the edge of the railing, because everyone's standing up to try and look over and see him. And so, yeah, there was some moments where it was like, oh, I can't really see as much as I want to right now.
Who was not on the show that you think you, or maybe the crowd, if you had any way to pick up on it, was most disappointed they didn't get to see?
Oh.
Because it was not a full 4.5 hour AEW pay-per-view where everybody's there.
No.
So, you know, I mean, obviously you don't know what people were thinking in the building for the most part, but did anyone stand out where you're looking at the lineup as it takes shape and you're like, man, this is a person I wish I was there? And then, I mean, was there any chance for anybody else who wasn't on the show where you could tell if they come back, that's who they want to see next time?
There was definitely some people, like, I mean, MJF being as big of a star as he is in the company, I felt like it would have been a good idea to have him in these international appearances. And so I feel like that's kind of what it comes to, is that people like MJF and genuinely just more people of the women's division, I think, deserved to show up. Like, we had 4. Like, we had no Julia Hart accompanying Buddy Matthews to the ring. We had no one else even had any kind of presence of even a backstage promo or just a shot of them watching the match on screen. We had none of that. And so I feel like it would have been a good idea to have other women just present in this overseas grouping that could have helped out.
Yeah. When I've got like a few things I want to bring up. Do you think the media attention for this event before and afterwards was what the show deserved, what AEW deserved? Could they have gotten more? Did they have more opportunities than they took advantage of? Being in that country, was this a big deal, or was it something almost nobody knew who isn't as big into it as you and the people who actually bought tickets?
No. Is it plain and simple? No. I never saw any advertisement, like no ads, no billboards, no things in papers, no nothing about this happening. Like we have like public buses that go back and forth that all the time put up advertisements on the side of them. Never on any of those did I ever see anything about this. It was, to me, it was a surprise about how little this was advertised over the Brisbane area. And it kind of made me realize, like, oh, this is only going to be AEW people that are here for this. And that was a disappointment because this is, the first time that they've been in this market. They need to show people what they. But I suppose it also isn't a surprise when they didn't even make the jump to pay for the actual steel steps to be shipped over. We had these tiny little rickety steps set up on the side, and that was it.
I have stayed out of the ring size controversy that Zach Barber brought up. Yeah. I know if you're online, it's like a bigger deal than anything. So give us your brief take on it, because I don't feel it deserves a ton of time, but I'm curious, was it an issue for you in the building? Because you brought up the stairs, so I got to ask about the ring.
Being in the building, it genuinely, because I've never seen one in person before, I didn't pick up on it at first, that the ring was any kind of a different size to what it normally is. It was only afterwards when I saw people online starting to complain about it, how like, oh, the ring posts are like leaning in a little bit, the ring aprons don't fully cover the space, but I was like, oh, that was a thing? Sorry, I missed it entirely.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's enough time on that. Although, I mean, next time they're probably shamed into shipping a ring, FedEx ground or ship or something next time there. Who got the biggest reactions of the night? I mean, I think could pluck out from what you said so far, but was there a top three who were all tied, or was there a far and away number one? Can you kind of rank in order off the top of your head who seemed like the biggest stars to that audience?
Toni Storm, Coke, and then third spot is a bit hard between Harley Cameron, Will Ospreay, and Kenny Omega. The three of them kind of like, they all seem to get a massive pop that rivaled each other, so I'm not really sure. I might say that Kenny beat out Will, but it comes to a head-to-head against Harley, which is a surprise. Like, she's from Gold Coast, but like, I think she's had some of the best build, but there wasn't that many weeks of build for her, so it was a good surprise that she got such a good reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Harley Cameron. Like who said those three would be the answer to a question a few months ago? That's funny. Chris, do you have anything else you'd like to ask August?
I was just going to say, Harley Cameron has made me a huge fan in the last 2 weeks, just with what she's been doing. There's been a lot of talk as well about the merch situation with AEW. I know when they came to Canada, the merchandise for Collision was ridiculously poor. For Forbidden Door, it was significantly better. What was it like for you?
Bad. Like, the situation did not improve being in an overseas market. I was able to snap a couple photos. It essentially boiled down to they only had one belt available. They only had one figurine available, which was the new timeless Toni Storm figure. And then they just had an assortment of shirts of some of the people involved that night. And I think one or two posters. And there wasn't that much. There was so much more that could have been there. That should have been
sadly,
there.
that sounds like the most elaborate, well-stocked merch table I've ever heard of at an AEW event. But it's still not enough.
No, it wasn't. Like, I mean, it was also, I feel like they need, especially for overseas events like this, they need to have two, is the thing that I think I thought about, because this one was swamped from the moment the arena doors opened to the moment the show started. Packed to the rafters. I could barely move through that area. I came in, it was packed. I found a spot to just sit down and wait for the doors into the actual show space to open. And I think about half an hour before the actual show started, I went back out to have a look, and it was still swamped. They had looked like people hadn't moved.
It's funny, when I went to All In before AEW was formed in Chicago, my first memory of walking in the building is people waited in line to get in the building. Why is there's this long line around the concourse? And I followed it, and I just walked like all the way around the concourse, and like 2/3 of the way around the whole building was a merch table. And it wrapped like it was the longest merch line I've ever seen. And then we were looking around going, was that these are t-shirt guys. There's got to be like 6 tables. Let's point fans to the other merch stands. It'll help alleviate this line. And it turned out there were no other merch tables. There was just one line, a half a mile long. They have not changed. Fan Blast says, yeah, that was the Bucks and oh wait, that's not I clicked the wrong one. Kyle Fassel said, yeah, the merch line was crazy at All In, Wade. So again, what are we 7 years out from that? 6.5. It's like they still it's still an issue. It's crazy. Money left on the table.
They had 3 tables at Forbidden Door 2023 when I was there, and they were all swamped too. Like Chicago is the only place where they seem to have decent merch, and that's just because they run down the street to get it from Pro Wrestling Tees. Like they don't make their own merch, and part of that is because they want the wrestlers to be able to have their say in what they have made and to make their own money off it, which is admirable, but it leads to situations like this.
Yep. All right, August, another question for you. And this plays into standard deviation going, by the way, I noticed that Grand Slam is listed as if it were pay-per-view and not a collision on the Australian streaming app. Did you follow this the whole way through from a bigger venue to the smaller one, expectations that it would be more of a longer 3-4 hour special event, maybe streaming live on Max, maybe pay-per-view, whatever. Tell me about that journey that you went on and what you think went wrong, that it ended up being smaller in scale than I believe, honestly, AEW initially intended.
Yeah, so started out Suncorp Stadium, which I think from memory of looking it up has a capacity of about 52,000 people. It undersold there, which I do not believe is really our fault overall, because they announced that they were moving the venue before the first match was announced.
Yep.
They had no build-up. They didn't prep anything. They didn't show us as a fan base what we would be getting for buying the ticket before going like, well, we haven't sold enough. We're moving somewhere smaller, which caused so many problems between people with, I think, the VIP or at least the front row tickets being reassigned tickets in the 8th row or back.
Ooh.
It was awful. I don't know what happened. I don't know how that happened.
Just awful, yeah.
And then the response from AEW about fixing that issue was subpar at best, of essentially just saying, sorry, like either refund your ticket and buy another one or try and figure it out yourselves, essentially. It was a really bad response in a bad situation that genuinely they caused. I think had they announced Grand Slam Australia with a match, or very shortly after announcing it, having said that, the main event is going to be Toni Storm versus Mariah May, or anything else, they could have actually stood a chance of at least getting closer to Suncorp numbers of 52,000.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, it's a bunch of what ifs and what could have been. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like an AEW apologist. I don't get accused of that very often. We have people who chime in and do that for me, who I try to hold accountable. But this was a long journey. It was a market they're not familiar with. They are still a relatively new company. WWE wasn't always great in these categories, and they have turned into this behemoth, gargantuan juggernaut of an international brand. It's and so comparing to them, they're going to pale in comparison. But again, when I say I'm not apologizing for it, I still think they managed to go lower than the bar I just set for expectations for a company entering a new market that's that far away and that new to them. It still seems like, especially when you talk about the customer service after the tickets were reassigned, like that's a kind of thing that it's not about the logistics of making something happen. Of, we don't have ring stairs, we forgot that. Let's add that to the to-do list. If you go on a vacation, you forget something. You make a note. Next time I go, I'm not going to forget it. That's kind of what this is like. Okay, you forgive it. It's tacky. It's a little small time, but whatever. But when you're reassigning people who did whatever they did to go to front row seat, and now they're in row 8, and you're not making it up to them. I mean, to me, they're the ones, if that happens, they're getting backstage access to meet wrestlers for free, off the record. they're getting a free ticket next time. Just like whatever you got to do. Really, or you get a box of T-shirts and merchandise. Everyone gets a free title belt. Like, roll out the red carpet if that happens, because that is a bummer for people who know they're not going to get to see AEW much again. They got excited about something that then got taken away and weirdly assigned in a completely unacceptable way. I don't know how often that happened and the true extent to which AEW fixed it, but it sounds like you followed that, and there's definite frustration.
There was massive the amount of a backlash from here that came out of that entire situation.
Yep.
But like David's saying there's a certain amount to be forgiven of being in a new market, but this was also their first time to show us what they can do for a new market.
Yes. Kyle Fassel says free pretzel next time. Would that be enough, August? A free pretzel?
If I had bought a VIP ticket and that happened and I walked in and they said, here's a free pretzel, I would probably throw it, stomp on it, and dive tackle whoever gave it to me.
Yes. Okay, so we'll scratch that from the list. Kyle, appreciate the suggestion. I think they can do better than that. All right. Chris, anything else you want to ask August?
No, I think you've covered it. Some great insight. I'm glad you got to experience it. Living where I do, I'm remote. I don't get to see very many shows either, so I'm living vicariously through you.
Yeah. I for all the negativity, we're kind of not negativity, but things we've said that they can improve on. It was an incredible show that was absolutely insane to watch in person.
Yeah.
And to see all of those stars and to just the energy that was in that space was massive.
Well, small thing, that would have been a good note to end on, but I wish I asked this earlier. Did the Tony Storm roll-up finish, the cradle finish, work? Because there's a history of her using that move, but when it's the main event, it's a rival, it's a long storyline. I'm not against unexpected finishes, but there's a stigma in pro wrestling that a roll-up finish is sort of like, well, when you don't want to protect someone, that you don't want to do a clean job, we'll do a leverage pin. Did it land flat, or did the crowd embrace it and pop for it because XYZ, they just wanted Tony to win, or they liked that as a way to beat Mariah because it was maybe more humiliating?
In the moment, all that mattered to, I think, the audience was she won. That was the thing that everyone was on their feet screaming and cheering at that moment just because she won. It could have had a flashier ending, a more fitting ending to that entire rivalry. There is a part of me that likes that kind of that humiliation aspect of Mariah May got beaten with a roll-up take. That there is argument that it possibly should have been a harder hitting finisher solely to set up for Mariah May to possibly be out for a while to inevitably have her big return. But that's in hindsight.
Another person I want to ask about Okada. Did he seem like an international megastar? I can't believe we're seeing him in person. Or did he seem like a mid-card comedy figure that if you didn't know anything about him, you would be your impression if all you did was watch AEW and never listen to the announcers tell you how great he is? Well, he has occasional great matches, but otherwise carries himself like a comedy figure. Chris,
did you want to load the question anymore there, Wade? Well,
I'm loading it with an editorial comment, but it actually sets up August to just knock it out and go, you know what? It didn't matter. This crowd thought he was a huge star. So I'm sort of loading it up for a possible answer that will satisfy people who are, laughing at me loading up the question. So August, how did the crowd respond to Okada?
It obviously wasn't the biggest pop of the night, especially considering he was with Buddy Matthews, who came out right before him and kind of, I think, sapped up a lot of that energy for the coming into this match. But he did receive a decent ovation upon coming out. Definitely wasn't the biggest of the night, but it was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was in between space of, he wasn't oh, you're an absolute joke of a wrestler right now, but it also wasn't oh my absolute god, it is Okada.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, cool. Now, August, final question to you. Anything else come to mind that you want to bring up from the experience, the matches themselves, anything else from attending Grand Slam Australia?
I don't think there's much else, just apart from how much I enjoyed the show. for all intents and purposes, I'm really happy that this was my first show. It was, in terms of match quality, it was incredibly good. It was exceptional in terms of just the feeling in the arena. It was a great show. I'm sad that I wasn't aware at the moment that apparently Rhea Ripley was in attendance and I didn't see her. Apparently, it's rumored, apparently it was confirmed by somewhere that Rhea Ripley was in attendance at Grand Slam since her and Buddy are now having their honeymoon.
Okay.
Apparently she's like taken a little bit of like a tiny bit of time off of WWE to have their honeymoon since they were both in Australia. And knowing that she was there, I was so disappointed that I didn't see her. But I got to see Tony Storm. I got to see like Hart Fletcher, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay. I got to see some of the people that I follow as close as physically and emotionally as possible right now. So it was an incredible night.
Awesome. August, thanks for taking time to talk to us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You did great. Call up after Dynamite sometimes. Just talk about the show.
Yeah.
Cheers,
awesome.
mate. Good on you.
All right. Thanks. All right. If you want to be an on-site correspondent like August just was, you can email me, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what show you're going to, Raw, Dynamite, or SmackDown. And obviously the date in the city, put that in the subject line. And I'll be in touch and we'll arrange for you to be on. All right, cool. We have a super chat that I normally get to quicker, but it's had so much going on here early in the show. But it is a topic I want to bring up. Efren, that was a very generous super chat. Thank you, Efren. Says, fabulous with a concert stage setup tonight. Let's talk about the setting because it's been a thing with AEW. They've been going to smaller venues, different venues. I thought this was one of the better looking venues in terms of how they shot it. There's times when there's a ring right up against the stage and the hard cam points at the entrance stage, and that doesn't work. It looks small time. But in this case, they picked some great camera angles. The crowd looked really full, and the lower bowl was deep. And it felt like the fans were right there near the wrestlers. So I thought it worked tonight. It's not as good as filling Capital One Center with a full crowd and the light up ribbon and the NHL state-of-the-art arena type setup. Obviously, it's below that. But is it better than a darkened 20,000 seat arena with, where it's clear, there's tarping off, and they have to be careful of all the camera angles? What do you think, Chris?
I'm not a fan of that style of stage where the stage goes all the way to the ring. It's not my preferred way to set up an entrance ramp. But if we're going to talk about things to complain about with AEW, that is way down the list. I did notice that the lower bowl in this building seemed unusually big before it hit any sort of rising seating. It seemed like everybody was sort of on a flat level on the floor, way back to the back of the floor level. I'm wondering how the people in the back, behind like 30 or 40 rows of people, how their view was for the night. But it sounded good in there. The crowd was behind the show. There was some interesting chants, I have to say. I can't remember the specific point, and I don't think I wrote it down, but there was something that got a cheer that kind of surprised me. But the days of them drawing 20,000 people to a Dynamite are done. Like that's not happening for the foreseeable future. And I'm glad they finally realized that and stopped trying to book buildings that they could have filled 5 years ago. And they're going to do themselves a lot more favors by filling a 5,000 seat arena every week. And that's what we saw today.
Yep. Do you think that it hurts? I'm accidentally giving Zach a little extra time for his super chat there.
He doesn't.
I'll take it away then. Do you think people watched a show tonight like this in this setting and thought, I don't think MJF and Hangman are big stars. I don't think anybody's a big star. Or I mean, is that just a necessary? There's nothing they can do about it. So why even fret? But do you think that's a case where it's clearly a smaller venue and it does chip away a little bit?
But are they big stars? In the context of AEW, they are. Mm-hmm. But I think you'd have to go through a lot of random people on the street before you found someone who'd heard of MJF or Hangman Page.
Yeah.
But whereas they've heard of Roman Reigns, they've definitely heard of John Cena, and they've heard of CM Punk. So Sure, they do seem like they're coming off as a little minor league, perhaps. But the reality of it is that's where AEW has found itself. They are not a major promotion. They don't have major stars. And they've got a long way to go before they get, I guess you could say, get back to that point, because they were there to start with. But they've found their level.
Yep. And you know what? They can rebuild. I mean, can they rebuild? You seem pessimistic that it's anywhere on the horizon they can rebuild to being a WWE level competitor, running the same buildings and outdrawing them in any context.
Before Triple H took over, I would have said yes. I don't know that that's something that I see in the next 2 to 3 years. That said, that doesn't mean that AEW isn't a good product. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. And it doesn't mean that they can't still be successful. TNA has been around for a very long time and has never come close to overtaking WWE.
Right.
Anytime they got over 1 million viewers was a cause for celebration. AEW started off hot. They died down a lot. They shot themselves in the foot multiple times. They have to consolidate what they have now and then gradually build up from that. They can do it. They're taking steps in the right direction, but it's not something that you're going to see in 6 months' time.
So a couple chat room comments. MJF Standard Deviation says MJF main evented an 80,000 crowd. I don't think it's fair to say they're not major stars in the context of any level of a star in pro wrestling. And Kyle Fassel says, yeah, they do have major stars. They just don't know how to use them. I mean, what they found out is there's, when they ran Australia, they thought maybe this will go as well as Wembley did. And they had a bit of a reality check. That's maybe more market-based than momentum-based, but momentum had something to do with it too. I don't know. I mean, they have major stars. They don't know how to use them. That's part of it. But like you say, in the Paul Levesque era and the momentum that WWE has right now, I mean, even if AEW is doing more things right, WWE would still be expanding the lead, just not by this much.
I find it hard to believe that somebody as intelligent as Tony Khan doesn't realize the geographical differences between Australia and Europe. You can get to London from about 8 different countries in 3 hours. You can get to Australia from Australia in 3 hours. There is nothing close to Brisbane except Melbourne. And even that isn't that close. Like, it's not like a bunch of people. Perth is across the other side of the country. It would take longer to get from Perth to Brisbane than it would take to get from Brisbane to like Japan. Mm-hmm. This is not an easy trip for people who live in the same country. But if you're in London, you can pull in fans from all over the place. And you'll notice when they went there this year, they didn't sell 80,000 tickets. Did they hit 50? They might have just broken 50,000 this year, I think. Yeah. That's a huge drop off. AEW is not moving in the right direction.
All right. This is not real. I think got an email into us too. Says AEW is getting to the point where WWE was a while ago, where there are so many straighten your time mistakes that it can be genuinely frustrating to watch.
Wait, is that you? Is that you under an assumed name?
No. Well, you put straighten your tie in quotes. He knows he's quoting me. Yeah. So Mark Biscetti says Tony has a roster that could be a lot more relevant. His booking blind spots have eroded the audience. All right.
Actually, I do have a comment on that specifically because for some reason I randomly remembered a New Japan event, New Year's Dash 2023. I promise this is relevant. New Year's Dash used to be booked as a surprise. Nobody knew who the matches were going to be until they happened. And we had Jeff Cobb and Hanare come out. That's not important. Kenny Omega came out to face them. And everybody was like, okay, who's his partner going to be? And then Okada's music hit. And the entire place went crazy. Both of those men are now under AEW contract. They could do that again and have an opposing team of Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita. I mean, storyline-wise, it doesn't work. But Tony Khan has people that used to set the wrestling world alight and were causing huge buzz and were making arenas of 60,000 people lose their minds just seeing them in the same ring. And he's done nothing to continue that momentum.
Yep.
So I think it's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to our caller Sean from Tennessee here.
Hey.
Sean, welcome to the show. Covered a lot.
On Wednesday.
Good. I know. I'm going to say we covered a lot, but you are a special treat on a Wednesday night to take us to places maybe we wouldn't think to go. What's on your mind about tonight's show?
Well, first, I was excited. I honestly was excited when you said Chris, or when it said Chris was going to be on, because I always enjoy talking with you and Chris both. But Chris, it's good to talk to you, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, man. Good to see you. Yeah, busy but good, man. Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, man. Same here. So Wade, you'll be interested to hear that they decided to close everything here. We had like maybe an inch, maybe two, maybe, and everything's closed for the day because that's what we do here in Tennessee. We close everything. But I get it. It was very cold. The wind chill is going to be down to 0 here, which is very cold here. That's really cold here. So they're like, let's be on the safe side. So I get it. So I got to watch Dynamite live, which was fun. I enjoyed the show overall. I have some nits to pick, but I will talk about going back to MJF and Hangman really fast, going back to what you were saying. Chris, I'm glad you brought up the point about Hangman getting over on his own. Like, yes, he was the chosen one, but he got over. The fans were into him. They got into him. They told a fun story with him at the beginning. And MJF shouldn't have to bring up burning houses down because they shouldn't have done it. So you got to bring it up because it happened, and it's part of what they told the story. And it's a dumb part of the story, but it was a story. But I thought they got it back together. I thought in the end, that Hangman actually did yell more than MJF, to be fair. I think MJF actually did yell more.
Yeah.
But it was funny too because they just brought up the stuff with CD, which was fine because he had the street fight with him. But it was just so funny they had to get to this whole street fight with him, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it was going to the point where he said he'll fight for anything. He's got the heart of whatever. And I mean, I know they built it in that way, but it was just so funny. They had all that, and then all of a sudden it's just like, CD's pumping him back up, and it was just, it was good overall. They got to where they needed to go. I think MJF's in a better spot now. MJF was hurt because number one, he went to the tropes that he always goes to, but the Adam Cole stuff was just crap. I mean, they put him with Adam Cole, and it was stupid, and it was awful, and it was bad, and Adam Cole's in a horrible place now, and MJF is at least getting in a better spot. So I'm hopeful that it'll stay on the right direction. So that was my thought on that. So going back to Mercedes, okay, so they had it was just a basic promo, stage, whatever. So they had the match in New Japan, Chris, you know about it, where Momo Watanabe, is that her name?
Yep.
Won this I don't watch New Japan, Chris. I don't know anything about Momo Watanabe. I have no idea who she is. I have no clue. And all of a sudden she's fighting Mercedes for the TBS championship. I hope they have a good build in this couple weeks because they better tell me everything I need to know about who this woman is and why she's fighting for the TBS championship and why we should care that she's going to win the TBS championship, because Mercedes just feels like she's beating, to me, people that I don't know. Harley was fine. Harley is getting in a good spot. She's on the right track. She shouldn't have won Saturday, but I like where she's going. But it wasn't time. Momo, it's definitely not time because nobody knows who she is. And in 2-3 weeks, they're not going to have her beat Mercedes because we don't know who she is. Help me, Wade. Help me, Chris, figure out why they're doing this and where it's going. And just help me.
You're saying some of the things I said on my TV report, Sean, on the website. I mean, first of all, I
didn't read it, by the way. I did not read it, Wade, to be fair.
I know you didn't. No, I'm kidding. I don't even know what I mean by that. Okay, so Mercedes gave her best promo, which isn't saying a lot because her promos have not been good in AEW, but I want to try to actually be I don't know how you do a genuine compliment when sort of the framing of it is she seemed like an actual grounded human being talking instead of just someone spouting like catchphrases in La La Land. But honestly, it's a step in the right direction. So it was, I think she's somebody who people will connect with more, not in a babyface way, just like connect more with as she's a star that I want to pay to see. If she isn't just, money, this and that, and kind of the same body language and mannerisms that she always does, just talk to us, but be arrogant and don't always close with the Mone thing. And she did. I mean, so there's still some negatives here, but I think it was a step in the right direction, something to build on. But the job is not done. This is just the beginning, and I don't know if you can, Chris. I mean, what do you think AEW can do, ought to do, to get to pull Sean in and people like Sean. So by the time that match happens, it's not just people like you, Chris, who are knowing who she is, what her backstory is, and see this as a cool match that, is that you thought might never happen.
Y'all giving me too much credit, man.
Fair enough.
New Japan does not have women's matches. She wrestles in Stardom.
That's right. That's true. Oh,
I
gosh,
don't have enough time to watch Stardom as well. Even Kelly Wells barely watches Stardom, and he's a former completist. I am never letting him live that one down. So the women's match on Wrestle Dynasty was great, by the way. That 4-way match is worth watching. Athena looked like $1 million in that match. So first of all, Momo Watanabe is an idiot because she could have challenged Toni Storm. She could have challenged Mina Shirakawa. Not Mina Shirakawa. I can never remember the name of the Stardom Women's Champion, and I'm going to get lambasted for this. But she had the opportunity to challenge any champion, and she chose Mercedes. Okay, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, you had time to show an interview with her where she read in decent English, better than my Japanese, a script. You could have spent that time showing us a 30-second highlight video of why she's good. We did get to see her winning the match, which, by the way, she won by absolutely waffling someone upside the head with a baseball bat instead of an actual wrestling move. But you could have just shown her a montage of her moves. I have zero faith that they're going to do that in the next week or 2 weeks. They're just not. That's not how they roll. Mercedes has had ridiculously good matches in the last little while. She had a couple for New Japan Strong. She wrestled a great match with Statlander. She carried Harley Cameron in Australia. Like, that was a really, really good match. Yeah. I don't have any problem with the match itself. They didn't start the build correctly. They shouldn't have had Momo and her face off at Grand Slam without telling us who she is, who Momo Watanabe is. Momo is not in the top tier in Stardom, by the way. So they have a good idea. They could have done it okay. They could have given you enough that you would say, all right, I want to see this. I want to see how Mercedes beats her. But we're not going to get that. And it's just it's just going to be a bunch of fan service to a very small group of fans.
Some chat room comments on Sean, or our comments on Mercedes. Sadler version 3 says, I actually think Mercedes has been better lately. The start was awful, but she's back on track, in my opinion. Let's see. I didn't mark this. I thought I did. Some other people. Oh, yeah, Goodfella, this one. I like Mercedes promo tonight. Proper swag and wordplay was good. And sometimes you can have something that's good in your promo, but if it's all there is and you're leaning on it too much, it just by definition becomes bad because it's taking away genuine, like, just grounded human moments, so that the swag and the wordplay is the cherry on top and not just a bowl full of cherries. Maybe you like a bowl full of cherries. I don't know. But, you want to have that be the punch at the end or a transitional moment. But when it seems like you're leaning on it, then it kind of feels like you're going through the motions. You're just leaning too much on the same thing every week. And so, to me, part of what can get this match over is Mercedes talking about Momo and saying, this is what beating you would mean to me. And I know what you, and like, really get into, have her do the heavy lifting on it and make it seem like she's getting under her skin. There's a lot of creative ways to tell that story and have others fill in. But ultimately, Mercedes is a star. The fan, the wide AEW audience knows best. She's the one who can cut promos, and she's going to be there. We'll see what they have planned. I mean, she called her out and said, come say it to my face. So they'll have a chance to do it. But after that, then Mercedes has to do the heavy lifting and sell it from there. And, we'll see what they have in mind. I mean, like Chris, you said, it is a heavy lift when you're dealing with somebody new who isn't just going to go out there and cut a great promo.
I don't think I don't think saying it to my face is what this match, or this it's not going to be a feud, what this match needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we don't need to see the two of them in the ring facing off against each other. It's not like I'll give credit to Britt Baker here. She's not Britt Baker on the mic. She's not going to get in the ring and tear a new one out of Mercedes. What we need to see is what she can actually do in the ring. Yes. And that would have been a much better use. have her come in and beat up Penelope Ford or somebody else that's just completely irrelevant on TV. And just then we can see, okay, she's really good. This is going to be an entertaining match, and Mercedes is going to be pressured here. But we don't need a promo segment, especially with someone whose English is not solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell me the backstory of why I should believe that this woman has any chance of beating Mercedes, because even though I know that she's not, and that's what hurts it, is I know she's not, but help me to at least invest in this woman as why I should root for her to beat Mercedes Mone. And that's what they don't do, and they don't do a lot. They do sometimes. I mean, I'm not saying they never do it because that's not fair, and Zach would kill me if I said that. It's not fair. But and that's what really burns me is there's so many matches where it's hard to invest because I just know who's going to win, and I want to, but they don't even make me want to invest that much. But going back to Toni really fast, which her promo, it was good. I did enjoy it. I do love Toni Storm. The character has things about it that I don't like. That's whatever. The promo was
fighting
fine.
words, Sean. Fighting words.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. Zach, don't hurt me. I said I love Toni Storm.
With a lot of
people. I
people.
don't like Toni Storm. Yeah, but so nothing in the promo made it sound like she's going to face Mariah at Revolution. Now, Mariah could attack her next week and stuff. I mean, there's stuff that could happen until then, but she just almost threw her to the side like, oh, I had a great match with her. She blah, 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 but then I'm just done with her. I'm moving on and, tits out to the next person that I'm going against or whoever I fight. And I like that she's a fighting champion. She did say, I want to fight whoever. I want to fight the best. That was fine. Is she not fighting Mariah, or is Mariah just going to attack her next week and they're just going to go somewhere with that to build up to the match at Revolution?
Chris, what do you think? How long before
I would be surprised if we see Mariah May coming. I think we might see a couple of open challenges. It's got to be almost Riho o'clock again. Maybe we'll get a Riho sighting. I wouldn't be surprised if they're setting up for Forbidden Door and Mayu Iwatani, who's the name I was trying to remember earlier.
Yes.
Which would be, I would pay good money to see that match. I wouldn't really care what else was on the show. Iwatani is ridiculous. So I think that's where they're going by her calling out the best. Iwatani is arguably the best women's wrestler in the world right now. So
haven't seen her.
I think that's
the
ultimate. No, but there is time to build that up, right?
Yeah.
And when she comes in with a world title on her shoulder from a company that is actually relevant, then that immediately makes you go, okay, she's obviously worth paying attention to. And in 45 seconds, they can show you.
And they should. And I'm not saying they shouldn't, and that would help. But it still is emblematic, symptomatic of what AEW and Tony Khan relies on, which is this bubble of ardent hardcore fans, which they have reduced themselves down to at this point. And we know who they are. And is it sustainable for the next TV deal? Or are they on their last big TV deal? That's the buffer that they've been given. And there's only so much time. And if they drop more, if you're one of those ardent hardcore fans, you ought to not be reflexively defending AEW in all ways, but be part of the chorus of other voices going, give us what we want, but please keep everyone else in mind. And that was my argument about the tag match for Grand Slam. Like, there's a ton of people tuning in are waiting for this NBA nonsense to end so they can see Kenny and Ospreay against the Don Callis family. It's going to be a great match. My God. Fletcher Takeshita, this is going to be fantastic. Well, yeah, you got them. But as I talked with Jason Powell on the flagship Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast flagship yesterday about how selfish are you as an ardent AEW fan, a Kenny fan, or whatever fan, to go, I don't want to sit through 90 seconds of a backstory setting the stage for this match for the 3 million NBA viewers who are candidates to be hooked and pulled into watching Collision for the very first time. Instead, let's just go to an arena with music and a wrestler coming out. Tony Khan still doesn't get it. Like, I don't know how that'll ever happen where he sees opportunities to expand, and then so the presentation of another wrestler getting a title shot. Yes, there's a backstory to earning it, and they covered that. but there are people like Sean out there who want to care. And sometimes you're picking an opponent where you're not going to get people to care. You can do all the things we've said. It's better, but it's still not as good as just like taking Athena and putting her on the main show every week and building up a storyline. Like, so there's still this weird, it's not even weird. It is what it is. Tony Khan's like it's star rating international dream match mentality that continues to just be a distraction from growth and is just placating and super serving and getting him some praise online for people going, thank you so much, billionaire wrestling promoter, for giving us dream matches. But it's coming at the expense of AEW's growth or retaining the viewership they once had. Anything unfair there, Chris?
No, and I've been saying that for a while, and I think the problem we're running into now is that in order to fix this, AEW has to start doing some of the things that other companies have done successfully, and that will chase off some of the hardcore fans. So your way to fix this is going to erode the fan base that have stuck around, and that is the catch-22 that they've put themselves in. Because, like you said, we're at the point now where these hardcore fans have been so hardcore super served that they think that any compromise away from that is a slight to them, and it's going to turn them off the product. So if you do put a 90-second promo video up for Momo Watanabe, they're going to say, why are you showing me this? I know how great she is. Okay, fantastic. But like you're talking, there are 3 people right now on this podcast, on this post show, who have watched literally hundreds of years of professional wrestling between us.
Yeah.
And most of us could not pick out Momo Watanabe from a lineup. And we wouldn't be able to tell you, like, I don't know what a finisher is. So,
and that's what I'm saying. Wade, I mean, go to the chat here in a second because there's a good one on that. But what I want to say is, I don't understand. Like, to me, Tony, like, that's the thing about the Tony Mariah match. Like, she gets a roll up. That shouldn't end the feud. Like, we shouldn't be done. She freaking rolled her up in a small package. Like, how is that ending a feud?
It might not.
They've been lasting for 15 months that they've been blood and beating each other up and crushing each other. And we're going to have a small package and Mariah's just done. That's it. It's over. Like, come on. Like, I don't know if you can end a feud with a small package. Like, that just doesn't seem, I've never seen it. Now, if there's been one that ended on a small package, like, I mean, I'm wrong, but I've never seen a feud like that end on a small package. To me, but I don't know.
I'm not convinced it's over.
No, it shouldn't be. It could.
I threw that question to August, and it's a risky move. Zach Barber can defend it or explain it and put it in context and say, well, there's a backstory to it. It's a risky decision, but Tony Storm's promo did kind of play off of that in a fun way. I don't think that was should be the sole reason for doing it, but it's a little bit of a bonus, I guess. But yeah, I mean, Mariah May can come back for call for a rematch and go, yeah, you won with a cradle, big. She can kind of use that as an impetus for wanting to get another shot too. We can see. So there's a mentality out there. I don't know if this is what you're referring to, Sean.
Yes, find it, please. I love them, but it drives me crazy that I want them to tell me. I don't want to go find it myself. I want them to tell me. It's their job to tell me how important this person is, not for me to go find it online.
So I'll throw a couple of those comments, and there's a couple others about video packages. Kyle Fassel says, I'm a hardcore wrestling fan myself, on websites daily, watching most products in indies. There are many wrestlers AEW brings in from Japan that I don't know at all. There's one comment, and then I shouldn't. Oh, here it is. The chat. Once I see it, stop chatting, people, then I won't lose my place. I'm about to click it on, and then there's another chat. Here it is, Ramen Noodle. Now you can go back to chatting, everyone. I'm about to click, and then like 2 more chats come up, and I lose my place. Ramen goes, I don't know who Mayu Iwatani is. Great. No, I'm mocking his spelling. You're not getting my joke. I don't know who Mayu Iwatani is, but guess what? I'm going to Google her. I know I shouldn't. Well, you're not going to Google her because you don't know how to spell her name. That's part of the problem here. You're going to end up with somebody else. And then you're going to think it's somebody completely different. All right. I love that. I know I shouldn't have to. By the way, for our podcast listeners, it's Mayu. This is what I'm reading. Iwatani. That is the spelling of how people ramen phonetically heard us talking about her. So I know I shouldn't have to. 90 seconds on Dynamite would be great, but I want to know more, so I'll do a little homework. This is the comeback that people have that I just find dumbfounding, because don't you, that most people are not going to do that. So just because you're willing to, you're an enabler. You're going, AEW, you're not doing your... That's like if you go to I'll use my restaurant. You go to a restaurant, all the tables are dirty. Oh, can I get a rag to clean a table for you? See, I can clean my own table. Why can't all the other customers? That restaurant's going out of business. You cleaning up the table for them is not helping them understand that they need to have a clean dining room. You are enabling them by cleaning your own damn table, thinking, well, everyone should clean their own damn table because it's simple. It's not that much work. We're busy here. Leave us alone. We're trying to cook food and whatever. Ring up the cash register. So, no, you're not helping by saying, I'll wipe down my own dirty table. It's their job to do it. You're not helping people by saying, I'll Google. It's AEW's job to do it. This is not a research project when you tune in to be entertained and escape, and you're like, well, the least people can do is Google and learn about it. That's not even part of canon. You might Google something, and it might have nothing to do with the story they're telling on TV. It is, with all due respect, Ramen Noodle, ridiculous. And you can spell that phonetically however you like. To say that because you're willing to do it, they should. And you're right. You shouldn't have to. At least you're acknowledging that. Standard deviation, very disappointed in you. Basketball viewers think sports entertainment is silly, and they don't watch it. If anything, I'll question the Harley Cameron match going on second. And he says the basketball viewer is more likely to be drawn in by athleticism than video packages about fake wrestling stories. Sure. So you can have both. The video package can explain the rivalry while you're showing how freaking athletic they are. They're not going to sit around for 8 minutes till you get through ring entrances and the feeling out process and amping things up. I don't want boring video packages with freeze frames of these wrestlers or talkings. The video package would say, here's who these two guys are. They were enemies. Now they're friends. They're fighting this despicable Don Callis. Here's his two top guys. And here's what's at stake in this match. And while you're doing it, you can tout that these are international megastars. And by the way, it'd be good to tell the audience and show them you're in Australia. Like, hey, this is an international company. And you had an opportunity to show what Kenny can do, to show what Omega does while you're telling the story and setting the stage for why people should care. This is not hard. This is not some high concept thing I'm asking for. And don't put up some false dumbed down argument of a boring video package with no athleticism. And you need to have, I'm not going to just watch most people aren't going to just watch gymnastics or anything just because it's good gymnastics. That's just wrong. I need to know a little backstory. I don't want to watch a great hockey game without team colors. And, tomorrow night there'll be a USA and Canada. Mm-hmm. I need to know who these players are, who they represent, and what's at stake. Don't just put guys in red uniforms and white helmets against guys in blue helmets with the blue helmets and yellow uniforms and go, but the hockey's going to be great. You're going to see some great passing and some good checks. Nobody's going to watch that. Grow up. Live in the real world. Nobody's watching because of athleticism, and it doesn't matter if it's fake. People are really into Severance right now. And you know what? It's fake. It is fake sports entertainment crap television because there isn't really a place that splits your brain into two realities. It's fake. But you know what? There's personalities, there's context, there's consequences, there's a world they create. And things that you're saying, standard deviation, tick me off because you are the problem that is enabling AEW to be stunted. All right. Chris.
Yeah. So I don't know. Gymnastics doesn't need a backstory because the backstory is competing to be the best.
But they always do it.
Sport.
But the Olympics does it all the time, and it's smart. They this is her backstory. Here's who she is.
The Olympics in the U.S. does it all the time. It doesn't and I think that's a very U.S. centric approach to that because other countries, the fact that it's the Olympics is enough of a backstory. But the Olympics isn't a good comparison point because the Olympics is all the story you need.
Yeah.
What I would have done to open Collision, I would have had a voiced just a montage of all four guys. I would have kept that same opening match, all four guys, their most impactful and spectacular moments. I would have had Jim Ross, and it has to be Jim Ross, voicing it over, saying Kenny Omega, former IWGP champion, former AEW champion, all of his accolades, listing them off. Each wrestler listing off their accolades. Tonight, all four men, one ring, one match, AEW Collision, Grand Slam starts now.
Yeah.
Straight into Elevated because Elevated is the best of those four themes to get people interested. And Will Ospreay has the most spectacular moves. So instantly, that's a voice that a lot of them have heard before, because he was the most watched wrestling commentator of all time, bar none. It's spectacular moves. It's a really catchy tune. The audience is going to go nuts as soon as the opening riffs of Elevated hit, and some people are going to keep watching. That's exactly how I would have done it, and I know nothing about TV production.
Yep. I railed against Robin Noodle, and Sand Deviation, so I want to give them rebuttal time, Chris. Holy misrepresentation. I said, I want to know more. Watching wrestlers wrestle is not the same as cleaning a dirty table. I'm a wrestling fan. So that was, I think, a metaphor. I'm not saying it's literally the same thing, so I just want to be clear. I do know there's a difference between cleaning a dirty table and watching people wrestle. But my point is when a company that wants to attract customers has a problem, and a loyal customer says, it's not a problem because I can take care of where they're slacking by doing something myself that I shouldn't have to do, you are not helping that business. That analogy holds up, and Chris, your body language says it doesn't.
The difference is when you go to a restaurant, cleaning the table is not part of the thing that you go to the restaurant for. Googling a wrestler to watch them wrestle is part of the experience that you watch wrestling for. So there is a bit of a stronger link between I want to see what Mayu Iwatani does in the ring and I want to clean down my tables. I think a more apt comparison would be I don't have a menu. I'm going to go watch the chefs cook for 20 minutes to figure out what's on the menu tonight.
So it took a lot of restraint to not interrupt you, but I just strongly disagree. Part of watching anything on television is not having your phone out needing to Google in order to care about it.
I agree.
Well, you just said it is.
No. I agree with you that people should not have to Google things. I just don't think the cleaning off the tables was a good analogy.
Well, I will stand by my analogy because it's a business that's doing something wrong that's a turnoff, and you're hurting. You're not help. You should go to the front desk and clean your damn tables. I want you to be open for me to continue to be a customer. That's what someone should do. Not say, let me clean my table, because all the other tables are still dirty. Nobody else has a clean table. You cleaned yours. You didn't help them attract new customers. So when you say, I'll Google it, and I shouldn't have to, but I will, you're the person cleaning your table instead of going up to the front desk and telling Tony Khan, the manager, get your employees to clean the damn tables because I'm willing to do mine. But you're going to be out of business soon because most people aren't. And that's my point. Your job is in canon within the opening and closing credits. Get people interested in what you're doing. There's not a Netflix or HBO series that's successful where the implication, the baked-in expectation is we don't have to make people really care about what's happening unless they pause or distract themselves with a second screen and look it up. I find that ridiculous, and you are an enabler if you're going because I'm willing to do it. Everyone else should. And I hear that. Like, well, all you have to do is Google it. Like, are you kidding me? Do you know how small a micro slice of the audience wants to research a show they're watching while they're watching it? That's insane talk. And you are an enabler driving this company into 3,000-seat buildings by saying stuff like that.
I do Google people, but I also recognize that that's me. And I don't think it's something that I completely agree that AEW needs to do more to tell us why we need to care about these people. I also don't think that saying, well, NXT does the same thing is a defense, because they shouldn't be doing that either. The thing is, you're not taking a large chunk of time out of the show to do this. And it's not like you're taking chunks of the show to do non-wrestling stuff. You're literally showing wrestling clips. So what is the issue here? It's so silly to just expect people to do extra work to enjoy your product.
Yeah,
you can. I would even be more in favor of this. I would be more in favor of Excalibur saying, "That's Momo Watanabe. She wrestles for Stardom. Google her." That is better than what they're doing now.
Yes. Equal time to Ramen Noodle. He said, and we'll get back to you. What about Game of Thrones? It literally had a second screen experience in seasons 1 and 2, and the creators have said that they depend on the large network of post-show podcasts from book readers. So here's an idea. AEW should say, to understand our product, you need to take out your tablet or phone. Here's where you go. Here's our second screen experience. We are catering to people who know everything. We don't want to waste their time by catching you up to what you should have been doing in 2019, in 2018, understanding the history of all this. But what we have done is created a second screen experience for you. Go here. Here's the information. You know how many times AEW has plugged their website, by the way?
What website?
0. They've never plugged their website. I mean, they have a website. They could use that as a resource and point people towards it, and they don't. So I think that's, you shouldn't have to do that. Like, you shouldn't have to tell people. I don't think it's a good idea to do what Game of Thrones, to pattern yourself after Game of Thrones in that way. But if your response is HBO and Netflix have never done it, you're bringing up a point. Hey, they've done it. Well, you know what? Game of Thrones producers did a lot more. They created that second screen experience as a way to track all the characters. When I watched Game of Thrones, I did that, by the way. I had a screen capture of all the families and all the characters and how they interacted with each other. And I literally, while I was with people who had read the book and knew everything, I sat there and watched, and I referenced the iPad while I watched it. Help me understand it. But I'm all like, so if that's what AEW wants to do, then they got to do it. But this is pro wrestling, and it should be simpler than Game of Thrones. That's one of the advantages pro wrestling has over a TV series based on a series of 800-page books. They are different in that way too. But point taken, Ramen, that there is something AEW could do. They're not. They're just depending on you to research it. But they have time to fix this. This is a big picture issue, though, in the sense that they haven't yet. So, Sean, I know I've kind of trampled over you trying to inject yourself into this conversation. I'll pause there.
No, it's fine, because I just want to say Ramen. Like, I mean, Ramen's awesome. I love chatting with Ramen. Like, I'm not doing this, and it's just, I know he was talking about himself. Like, and like I said, if I want to go try to watch something, I'll go find it too. Like, I mean, if I have time, I will. I just, their job is to tell me, not me go find it. Even if I want to go find it. But what I'm saying is, I don't think Mariah and Tony's over. It shouldn't be over. Like somebody said, it's 1-1. It's a small package. There should not be going to somebody else right now. It would be kind of dumb to not finish this feud off. And 2, if Iwatani is coming in eventually to face Toni Storm, my goodness, I hope she stays for a while, because I don't want her to come in, just face Toni Storm, lose, and then go away again. And then it's like, what point was that? Okay, she showed she's a great wrestler. Okay, great. And then she's gone, which is a problem with AEW, which kind of drives me crazy. Which, going into the Megan Bane stuff, another woman's topic, I have to bring this up. I'm a Megan. I've liked how I've liked the presentation of Megan Bane as far as she looks very daunting. She's got a good look. She's very tall. How many words has she said? 0. So they had her attack Statlander last week, and then they're just like, oh, let's put him in a match this week. Why? Build it up. Don't just have them wrestle the next week on Dynamite. It's like Statlander is bland as anything. Yes, she's good in the ring, but there's nothing there other than them just going to have a match. And then not only do they have the match, but they have Penelope Ford interfere in the match, which hurts Bane, because I know she's a heel, but she does not need help to beat Chris Statlander. Have her get a strong win over Chris Statlander if you're going to have the dang match. And now I just don't understand. Just Megan Bane is good. I like her. I don't understand to have the match that quick and then just blow it off and then not even have a good finish to the match. Help me again. Maybe I'm way off base.
Chris, what do you say?
I'm like 60% with you. I don't think Megan Bane needs to talk right now.
Rant on him on the 40% you just reached. Just go hard at him.
She doesn't. Damn it, Sean! It's a ridiculous suggestion that she needs to talk. She's been on TV for 3 weeks.
Another reason AEW is going out of business.
It's only been 3 weeks.
Like
I mean,
you
it's not enough.
And your insistence on everybody cutting promos are the reasons that Zach Barber has a column. Wait, how do we get to that?
My gosh.
No. Megan Bane, apart from the fact that she looks like a peanut who was left in the oven too long, doesn't need to talk to get her point across. She looks imposing. She wrestles imposing. She has a commanding presence. I don't know if she's any good on the mic, but I don't need to find out yet. I do think, though, that putting her in with Statlander already was a mistake, unless you were going to do it as a tag team match. I think you could have got away with that. But jumping to the singles match tells me they're either de-emphasizing Statlander or they aren't thinking forward, because they're gonna do the match again because there was an interference. The ending of the match to me was awful. The interference was bad enough, but the run-in from Thunder Rosa, who Where has she been?
Because she
That
wrestled Penelope
was
Ford. Like, that's the reason
so-
why. She wrestled Penelope Ford last week.
When?
On Collision,
Not
right?
on
Or
Dynamite.
Collision. Yeah,
It
right.
was so awkward. She runs in, she's kind of holding a chair. She gets in the ring and like almost hands the chair to Penelope
Yeah,
and then
scared.
takes it
She's
back.
scared.
And then
I didn't know.
You?
We did not know what was happening there. I think we got an email from someone just going like what?
I actually expected her to turn around and hit Statlander at some point. I thought this is going to be a turn, and she's going to hit Statlander.
You know what? She was imitating Michael Cole trying to like shake hands with Jey Uso, and it just went all haywire.
Oh,
yeah,
it was just so cringeworthy. It's like
so
Thunder Rosa has been such a letdown in AEW.
Yes.
It's just she came in with a lot of hype. She technically in the ring is supposedly very good. She did get screwed over by Britt Baker, but even without Britt being around, she's just done nothing except paint half her face and come in to the Cookie Monster singing and music. He says her name and then starts talking about Cookie. I don't know what the point of any of that part was. Just build the match, have Bane come out and squash somebody else, have Statlander come out and squash somebody and have them face down against each other again. They shouldn't even be touching yet. I was okay with the F5 last week, but it's just they rushed to this match. We are going to get another one, clearly, after we get a tag match, but the tag match should have been this week. They did it out of order, and it's frustrating.
I know. It is. Yep. It is.
Sadler Version 3 says Thunder started out amazing. I don't know what happened. Epic fall off.
You could put so many names in there instead of Thunder Rosa, and the sentence would be exactly the same amount of accurate.
Yes. I'm David Bryant says they jumped the gun on that Bane Statlander match, but I couldn't help but root for Statlander because I know nothing about her. Sadler Version 3 says, I agree with Sean. I thought they would build Bane versus Statlander. I think Stat should be more protected. She's a top woman in the division. It did not come. I mean, reality is reality. If you just put someone in the ring like that with no context, it comes across as if she's a jobber to the stars now that she's been, and we've seen historically wrestlers get pushed, and the next thing you know, you're Evan Bourne standing in the ring waiting to take a few bumps and lose. You know, like you were pushed and then we lost. There's something missing in you, so now you're going to be a guy who largely is putting other people over. That the optics of that immediately jumped out to me. Like what it comes across as what you got to set the stage, say what the stakes are, have a plan, and that the impression was bad. Goodfella 1422 says Stat rules in the ring. I agree 100%. They gave away that match. Andrew W.R. says they ruined a possible female feud of the year. I'm David Bryant says people who look and wrestle like Statlander and Bane should be given managers if they can't talk. That's why managers exist. That's in response to Zach Barber, who said, does she really need to be cutting promos? The point is that she's a female Haas who looks imposing, and other than Penelope interfering, her rollout has been great. The problem with Statlander, her character's been all over the place. I mean, it's like you can't just keep changing your mind. Like
should have stayed heel.
Just whatever. Be something and stick with it. And if it's a mistake, stick with it until you have a really good plan in place to what to do instead. So yeah, I mean, you might not like your kitchen, but don't tear out the kitchen sink and unplug the fridge if you don't have another fridge and you don't have a plumber handy. Like live with what you have that's imperfect until you have a good game plan. This was not whatever they're doing with Statlander and all the back and forth with her and the drop storylines and Stokely and all that. I mean, just figure out, like, who is she? Why do we care? What does she think about her past? How should we feel about the journey she's been on? And where does she want to go next? These are just basic things that if you're going to put someone on television who people think as highly of as they think of her, you got to put more work into it. And this was bad optics for her tonight. And, but we protected her with a interference finish. Well, it's an interference finish, and now it's just getting mocked left and right, and that's not an out for even booking it in the first place.
Yeah, and I will say, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I was going to say the mockery was more on Thunder Rosa than anything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Penelope was fine, even though it kind of damaged the match. The match itself, I thought, was good. Neither person really seemed to be dominating the other. I was looking for that. I was actively saying, okay, are they going to have Bane run over Stat here? But it was very even until the interference. So I feel like it looked like she was going to get squashed. That's what I was fearing, but they did give her enough that it did seem like she was being protected, and it does make me think, yeah, we're going to continue this feud. I just would have done it in a different order.
Yeah, I've been standing with sorry about Stat being a heel. She was with Stokely. If Stokely's serious as a heel with her, I think it was fine. They didn't need to change it. It was fine, and they just went back to face.
Well, Sadler version 3 says Statlander randomly turning face didn't help her either. Awful booking for her lately. I'm David Bryan says my favorite version of Statlander was when she was with Stokely. I don't know why they decided to change that. It wasn't perfect, but dropping it wasn't the answer. The answer was to perfect it. Yes, improve it. Don't abandon it. Zach Barber says, based on what did happen, Stokely should have brought in Megan Bane for revenge on Stat. And I like that. I think that from where we're starting as of the last week, or the last couple of weeks or whatever, the last few weeks with Bane, that would have made sense. And it would have given some context to Megan Bane's improvement also. Ramen Noodle says, you got to acknowledge, no, we don't. I don't even know what you're saying, but we don't have to. That those Stat has, it's a Todd Martin thing. That Stat has improved as a character. It took her a very long time to find her voice. She's always been impressive in the ring, and she has a good look. I get why they keep trying new things with her. Yeah. I mean, it's been years and years. Like, let's figure it out and let's go with it.
I just think Stat was, if she's going to be a face, she has to be able to talk somewhat to be a face, and she can't. She's awkward. She's not a good promo, and I just don't think them just wrestling all the time is going to do anything. I mean, I think there's got to be something more there other than just having good matches. I mean, I love good matches, but I need to be invested more than just their look and like they're going to have a good match and who the better wrestler is, which is good to a degree. But going back to the last part of the night, again, I have, oh my gosh, I'm trying to. There was good things about this show. I'm sounding all bad, and I don't mean to. This going to this international series was stupid. It was just absolutely stupid. Like, they had Wade. You and Jason were talking about this. Put Cassidy and Strong for no. What have they done to do anything? Like, okay, Cassidy's had the international title a couple times. I get that, so you could have that reason for him coming back. They had no reason for him to come back other than he just came back out of nowhere. Cassidy's just back. He's having a match with Roderick Strong, who, he's Roderick Strong. He's fine. Has he won many matches? No, he hasn't. So why is he getting an international title chance? I don't get it. And then we want to see Omega Takeshita. Omega challenged Takeshita to a match. And they're going to this international series, which means nothing. And it was just a random match that meant nothing because we know they're going to lose next week to Takeshita. And we're going to move on to the match we always knew was going to be there that we've all wanted. I just don't know why we had to get there other than Wade. TV time, yes, I get it, but the match meant nothing. There was no meaning to that match other than they've wrestled 8 times before, and it was a good match. That's all. That's all it was.
Yep. Did we talk about Ricochet yet? Should we?
Yeah, sure.
Standard deviation brings it up, so let's just do this. I don't want to forget. So it's in the chat. It's time to move on from other things here. Standard deviation says Ricochet segment was the highlight for me. And then Ramen Noodle, I don't know if in response to that, but says super awkward. I thought, and I'm of course not serious, but I thought they were going to cut to ringside and there's going to be Undertaker, Bubba Ray Dudley, Mickey James, and Booker T who are going to score his promo. That's what I felt watching Ricochet cut a wrestling promo. And I thought they were going to pat him on the head and go, that's a good start, son. You've got to break. There's some things to work on. Seriously, it came across. And I thought that there were elements there that if you curated out, 40% of it, like there's like, oh, because obviously that was not his thing in WWE. He said, I didn't believe in what I was saying. That's why I wasn't convincing is sort of the implication of what he did. But this was so like, there's there's things in matches that are indie-rific. This was like wrestling promo-rific. The stuff he was, the journey that he took us on there. Chris, what did you think? I people audio-wise miss out on your body language reacting to me. Most people are very stoic when I talk as co-hosts, and I don't know what they're thinking. I know what Chris is thinking.
I'm European. Yes. I'm very.
I love it.
Dude, like, are your middle names like Kendrick Lamar? Like the haterade coming out of you, dude. Honestly,
how was that hate? I said 60% of it was good, but you don't think that it was a little long and there's stuff to cut?
Patting him on the head and putting him on LFG.
It came across as. Do you not think Ricochet is trying out for? he's almost literally out there saying, I want to do a tryout so the internet will see that it was WWE's fault, not mine. I can cut a good promo. Give me 7 minutes. I mean, it is a what?
Say, Drake. No, I'm just I thought, and this is
good Lord, Wade working stiff tonight says this is not real.
I thought that was the best promo Ricochet has ever cut.
And I thought Mercedes cut her best AW promo too, but no. Is this a backhanded compliment?
That is left as an exercise for the weekend.
Okay.
You're not his best.
That's a low bar, Chris.
Well, speaking of low bars, I actually have written here, Ricochet said he wanted to win gold in AEW. Maybe set a higher bar. Everyone's won gold in AEW.
I know. Yeah.
I thought, first of all, Prince Nana is such an unsung hero.
Yeah.
I remember when he used to wrestle, and thank goodness he realized he wasn't good, because he is so good on the mic. He's been this goofy character for so long that anyone who didn't watch 2006, 2007 ROH had no idea he was capable of what he did tonight. He is phenomenal as a manager. And if you go, I highly encourage everybody to go back and watch some of the stuff he did with Jimmy Rave, rest in peace, who is another unsung hero who I think never got to do as much as he should have done. He was so good as a heel. But Ricochet, I thought tonight he was good. He wasn't great. He's never going to be great on the mic. But this character seems to be comfortable for him. And he feels like he actually is more at home cutting a promo in this gimmick. I really like it. I didn't like some of the cowardly stuff he did to start with. I would have much preferred him as a cold assassin type who's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I do think this is a huge improvement over anything he's done before. And he reminds me of Bret Hart after the heel turn, when Bret has never been a good person on the mic, but he got to a point where the character and just sheer repetition made him passable and even to pretty good. Ricochet's in that sort of a phase right now where he's not offending you anymore. He doesn't make you want to gouge your ears out. He's cutting a promo that you can listen to, that gets his point across, that doesn't sound forced, it doesn't sound fake. He does that stupid laugh. You want to punch him in the throat, but otherwise it's fine.
You were more mean to me than more mean to him than I was. I want to pat him on the head, and you're saying you want to punch him in the throat.
When he does the laugh, the rest of it's fine.
Sean, Chris, I'm going to mute you. Quiet for a second. Sean, would you rather be pat on the head or punched in the throat?
I'd rather be patted on the head.
Yeah, me too. So, Chris, you were meaner to Ricochet than me.
He's a wrestler. He gets punched in the throat all the time.
That is an illegal move in wrestling.
Oh, man. The yell at the end was bad. That almost ruined it for me. I mean, he didn't need to do that at the end.
The haha thing?
Yeah, he's healed, but
he's committed to that. I mean, I don't mind. I respect that he's committed to it, and I think as a heel,
that's fair.
I think as a heel, it's a thing that's going to be a signature thing for him that irritates people and gets some heat. Yeah. Okay. Here's a few chat room comments on Ricochet, because we lit up the chat room here. Goodfella 1422 said it was promo 101 for sure. LOL. And that's my point. Is the LFG, they're patting people on the head, going, "Good job, potential." And I wrote in my report long before this conversation, I thought it was a decent promo. I don't think it was a decent promo that could use some curating, and it's a work in progress. But totally, you can tell it's new territory. It's not polished, and it seemed like someone standing in the ring, and he knows the internet's judging him, not Undertaker and Mickie James. But that he's not in a comfort zone. He is not cutting those promos with refined confidence yet. I'm willing to go on this journey with him, by the way. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And Kyle Fassel says, I honestly think Ricochet is on his way to being better in AEW than WWE. Standard Deviation said, I like how Ricochet's trying to be the bully after being bullied and rejected by the Hurt Syndicate. Andrew WR says, his promo and look reminds me of when my kids go to the costume drawer and ask me to film them play acting. However, ironically, it's probably his best promo. And I don't think that's an unfair interpretation what he did. I mean, it sounds a little harsh, but it did feel like play acting a bit. It felt like I want to, and that's my point about it, feeling like a generic wrestling promo. I'm going to try some things. Judges tell me if I'm doing okay. It's not refined yet. I stand by it, though. I think Let's go on the journey. They're not leaning on him to be in a world title match right now. And I think I do think there's something there with him, but coach him, like have him watch it back with him. If you're a good promo, AEW should have people who have really good experience with money drawing promos. Sit down. If Jake Snake's around, like have maybe, I don't know, whatever, like sit down and go, here's what I like. Here's what I don't. I'm going to be harsh. I'm going to be blunt, but I'm going to point out some good things too. There's something there to build on. But what I want is I want a year from now, Ricochet to look back and go, I don't ever want to watch that again. That was horrible. Anyone who said it was good didn't know what they were talking about. I want him to improve that much. He's ashamed of what he did tonight. But you know what? Tonight is an important step to get there. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was awful, but I want him to, a year from now, to think it was. So I've been around wrestlers who don't want to watch their old matches. People love them, but they're like, I can't watch it anymore. I've learned too much since then. Standard Deviation said, I loved how he unintentionally called himself a void of nothingness. And then Kyle Fassel, I think there's a point here. This gets to another aspect of it. What bothered me about the promo was talking about the robe and how it was important in ROH. Modern day fans don't have an attachment to that stuff. They did it in reverse. They've talked about it. We saw the robe get stolen.
They did.
But they have not done as much of a treasure as Prince Nana is. Tonight was his introduction to the national audience, and they should have done it way back. And they did it in reverse. This is sort of, okay, Ricochet talked about this robe being important, and now Prince Nana shows up after being kind of a clown and interfering and heels. Remember when Swerve was a babyface, but Nana was still interfering in his embassy matches on Collision while he was being a babyface manager? I mean, he's been a mess. So his character's been presented as a mess. So this was good, but you can't take it out of the context of the journey we've been on with him, Chris.
It's important to remember that robe has been around for a while, since Swerve was trying to win the world title. When I think his first match against Joe, he came out and Nana put the robe around him, and that was the first time we saw the robe on TV. Mm-hmm. So this isn't the first time the robe has been introduced. It has been referred to multiple times as being a relic from the embassy, and how it was the crown jewel of the embassy and Jimmy Rave. So we have heard this mentioned several times on Dynamite, not just on shoulder content either.
I love Jimmy Rave. It was 18 years ago, his heel run. It was like, is it going to work? Is it not? But you can't say that name in 2025 as a defense for providing context for this. I mean, and it's not the centerpiece, and maybe in passing you can say it, but like that is one of AEW's issues. It's yes, emblematic of this thing of, well, y'all know because you're in the clubhouse, you know the secret handshake, and that's what's turned people off for so long.
I think in this case, though, just saying, like, we know, so it's been established, I think, that we know that robe means a lot to Nana and that it belonged to somebody. So I don't think we need to know any more than that to understand why it's so important. I think they've done enough to give us that backstory before tonight, and tonight just expanded on it. I don't think this is the same as not showing us who the heck Momo is, for example. Could they do more? Maybe.
You could say there was a wrestler once named Jimmy Rave who meant this to Prince Nana, and like, instead of going, oh, Jimmy Rave, and then they say it in a context that, of course, that's the problem. AEW's done that for 6+ years. They say things with the idea being, oh, I'm not part of this. They're talking to somebody else. This isn't for me. And you're not going to turn people off if you say, there was a wrestler named Jimmy Rave once who 18 years ago did this. And like, it's just a few sentences. And then, you got to repeat things. That's why you see the same damn advertisements all the time over and over again, because you don't just see an ad once and go, oh, I'm going to buy that car. So, you repeat it. You go, like, there's a hit, or you just go, Jimmy Rave's not essential to the canon of telling this story, and you leave it out. You can do that too. But mentioning it in passing, it just feels more like what a lot of us have talked about from day one with them, which is it feels like this exclusive clubhouse, and you're not cool enough. You're not one of the cool kids if you don't know what we're talking about. And man, that'd be one thing if the cool clubhouse stuff they're talking about was selling out 18,000 seat buildings in 2006, but it wasn't. They were running in, with basketball hoops above their head. So, in front of 200 to 500 people most of the time. That's the history that they're calling back, and that's a problem.
Part of me wonders. I'm just trying to go back mentally through the people who were in the embassy, and they're either dead or problematic. So it's kind of difficult to show embassy highlights. So you've got Bison Smith, who's passed away. Jimmy Rave obviously died last year. Joey Ryan was in the embassy. Claudio
Oh, wow.
Castagnoli is neither problematic nor dead, but showing him in African prince robes, probably not what you want to be doing
No.
given what he's doing on TV
No.
right now.
Yep.
Jeez.
So it looks like it could be a little difficult. I would love to show Jimmy Rave doing an entrance and getting pelted with toilet paper, which happened all the time.
Yeah. But that
I
was
may have
another
been
thing
guilty
that
of
was
it.
really cool for people who knew it.
Yeah.
But it was sort of done. I mean, it's just like, I don't want to feel like I walked into the wrong wedding reception hall and all these inside jokes about family history are going on, and I don't know what's going on. Like, sometimes you feel like you stumbled into a room and it's the wrong room, and there's all these inside references. Now, Standard Deviation said in chat, Nana's robe isn't a Clubhouse topic. He directly explained the history in tonight's promo. I know nothing about the robe outside of what I've seen within the narrative AEW structure, and I understand it now. Yes, they got to it finally. My point is it's been a talking point. This is an example, and I'm with Standard Deviation. This is what they should have done, and tonight was a good night to do it, but I think it's not, you can't deny that there were references to it along the way where the kind of framing and implication was, y'all probably know what we're talking about. We won't waste your time with context and details. And that's the tone that turns people away sometimes. It feels like it feels like you stumbled into the wrong wedding reception and you don't know the inside jokes about the family. Like, that shouldn't be the vibe you get. Kyle Fass will add the wedding reception in my analogy book that he requested. All right. So, Sean, your thoughts?
No, I agree with everything you guys said. I think I like what Ricochet's doing. I mean, like I said, the promo it's a work in progress. It was good. It was very good, well said. It was good. It wasn't great. There's stuff to do. The Nana stuff was great. I definitely enjoyed that. I'm excited. Going deeper into Ricochet, just wanted to go with him and Swerve in general because, again, I still think Swerve is in a good position. I just think he's lost too much because to me it hurt because you have him and Lashley. I thought the whole point was to him and Lashley to have a big feud together, and they had one match and he lost, and then Lashley just moved on to the tag team. So it's like, okay, Swerve. The whole point for me is Swerve never should have lost to Bryan. That was my thing. I just think he shouldn't have lost. I think he should have won. I think he was a great champion. The fans loved him, and they had him lose just because Danielson had to win the title for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they had to do it. And Swerve now just feels like he's losing left and right, and I think he needs to win this feud. And that, I know it hurts Ricochet, but Swerve has to win this feud. If he does not win this feud, I think he's in a rougher spot than he was 6 months ago because I think the fans, we love him. I love him, but he's losing too much. It's a problem.
Chris.
Brian Danielson had to win the title because Wade said that Brian Danielson needed to be in the AEW title lineage, so we can blame Wade for that one.
Oh, wait. Oh,
But-
yeah, that's right.
I think not only does Swerve have to win this feud, I think he will. Ricochet can absorb a loss right now. He has beaten Swerve, and he's got this new character that doesn't really need to win this feud for it to have legs. And then I think he can go on to feud with somebody. Are there any face champions right now? No. So Daniel Garcia.
How can you figure that out so quickly? That should take like about 10 minutes to research that. Yeah.
Somebody in Ring of Honor is probably a face. But I think Ricochet needs to just lose his feud and move on to something else, and then Swerve can move up the card. But he is on the verge of losing some of what made him special. I don't think he's quite there yet, but your point's well made.
Yeah. Real quick, I wanted to go to what do you guys think of the Moxley stuff? I'm still just not a fan. I just don't. Chris, I know you're going to agree. I think now after seeing how it's played out, this has just gone nowhere. Copeland, I love what he's done for his career. I'm just not behind him winning this title. He just got choked out a week ago, and to think he's all of a sudden going to go in. Yeah,
I mean, we're kind of like there's a pay-per-view coming up with a world title match and a main event, and we're talking about Prince Nana and Robe and the Ricochet closing lines, and I think they're relevant points. But one might argue we should have had earlier a little bit a comment about the follow-up to the world title challenger, Adam Copeland, a Hall of Famer, a household name, got a great emotional, cool reception at Grand Slam Australia, and he lost, and they still want us to believe he's a threat to Moxley. And the way they tell that story was just Copeland cutting a promo like that didn't happen. It was a fired up promo, but this came across. Yeah, it came across like this is a really personal grudge, and Copeland wants to destroy Moxley, and Moxley wants to destroy Copeland. But it's not about a world title; it's just about sort of revenge. And if it's about the world title, why should we believe Copeland can win? I mean, obviously you can win. The NBA champion, the NFL Super Bowl, they lose games and then they come back and they win the title. I get that, but traditional wrestling booking was they're up to something here, and I haven't had a chance to process or think of options. But did they? Did they come up with something, Chris, to explain that booking decision Saturday night?
All right. First of all,
this is good. I'm ready for this. Bring it.
Moxley is about a week away from a hot dog cart and a gas mask. The promo he cut tonight is so far away from what this whole thing started out as that it might as well be a completely different program. I passionately defended this angle when it started because I saw so much potential in it. I was as passionate about this as Zach is about Hangman's descent into madness and redemption arc. Like I can see where this is going. I see so many ways this could be successful. Tony Khan wants to book the first successful invasion angle of all time. It's just got worse and worse and worse. It was stuck in neutral for weeks. There was no development. It was just, they were wearing through the videotape because every week it was the same thing. And now he's coming out and just sounding completely unhinged. He's not talking about improving AEW. He's not talking about rebuilding it in his image. He's just like, I own this, I own this, I own you, I own everything. Like, that's not ever been what Moxley's character is about. He's not about owning things. He's not about controlling things. He's about improving things. And now he's talking about being the champion when he's never even opened the briefcase and shown the belt. He's never cared about that before. He only wanted the championship because it gave him the influence to do what he thought needed to be done. It's not
okay. So I'll read the context. Zach Barber says in the chat, "I'll reiterate my point from my column. You guys are feeling how you're supposed to feel about Mox of the Mechanics. They're dominating and oppressive, and everyone wants him dethroned." No, Chris, respond. No, I know you don't want to, but respond.
I don't want him dethroned. I want him to go away.
Away.
I am not that. If the way I am supposed to feel about Moxley is I don't want to see you on my television, then yes, they're succeeding. There are people in wrestling who make you hate them as a character. I don't hate Mox as a character. I'm bored with him. He has done this. It has done nothing. What is good about it? What has changed? What has improved? It started off with a great message and great potential, but it's just turned into this rambling lunatic talking about owning the arena, which is just the most tired heel trope. There is just nothing redeeming about this right now. And the fact that it's Copeland, who has just been so bland in AEW. He's done nothing entertaining. He's just trying to relive former glories, and he doesn't have the ability to do it. He's put nobody over. This feels like a TNA match from when they were just signing all the cast offs. It's like two older former WWE guys going at it in an angle that makes no sense when there are 150 homegrown talents who would be better off. My only hope for this having any redeeming factor whatsoever is Cope getting himself destroyed and Darby Allin coming in at the end of the match, and that finally leads to that angle where Darby beats Mox for the title. By the way, before I forget something else I wanted to rant about on this segment, how did two people fend off all of the Death Riders on their own? This is supposed to be the most fearsome unit in the company.
Exactly.
Who are beating up everybody left, right, and center. I brought it up. And they got taken out by two people.
Yeah. I said it on I was in Discord with some people, and I was like, Zach was actually in with us, and I was like, it's 2 against 5, dude. How are you going to beat these 5 guys? And they're destroying the 5 guys. Like, what is this? Like, what are we doing? Sorry.
I mean, there was a barbed wire baseball bat's a standard deviation. I assume that's what he means.
We got to bring Spike back. Chris, you love Spike, don't you?
Andrew WR says Copeland is okay, but he should be in the Sting AEW role.
There you go.
And JC Scooby 1976 says Adam Copeland should have stayed retired. Kyle Fassel says I think Mox's character has actually gotten worse. It's like you said, Wade. He's just traditional heel now. That's boring to me. At least this is the thing. You can say his character's worse, but at least he's not undercutting his babyface opponents now with a message that people are sympathetic to, and so they're kind of torn. I mean, Mickie James said it on the new WWE reality show LFG. Like she said it was about a match, but like you're a heel, but you didn't do anything heelish. Why would the fans be sympathetic to your opponent? Your job is to. I mean, she essentially said what I've been saying for months, which is the job of heel is to get your babyface over. Of course, there's a lot more to it. You want to be over, you want to be entertaining and all that. But really, ultimately, your job is to get the babyface over. Now, it might be en route to ultimately beating them at the end of a feud. If you're the heel world champion main event, you need to be protected. But the course you're on is not to bury or undercut or destroy the opponent who is by siphoning off cheers for them through unnecessary sloppy portrayal. And with Moxley, you had this unnecessary thing. I'm going to say a bunch of things people are going to nod along to and go, this is great. Oh, but try to suffocate Danielson. So now I have to. Whole thing was just a mess. And now, yes, he's a more traditional heel. I think that's better in the big picture, but I can also understand it seeming a little too one-dimensional or traditional in sort of a boring way now too. I enjoy anything Moxley does if I don't think too hard about the way he's, what he's saying. I mean, the way he says it is, he was badass tonight. I mean, it was like his demeanor, the way he walks, he owned the ring, he owned his space. There is still something there, but I don't think it's a world champion who's saying things everybody agrees with, but also trying to suffocate people and kill them. I mean, so it's just, and then having a poorly executed storyline that's just, I'm going to take over and everyone's going to stop me from getting in the building and then we're going to forget all about it.
And he has Wheeler Yuta with him. Ugh.
Yeah.
Wheeler Yuta's so underrated, but it's because he's just so annoying. Look, if they had kept up with what it looked like they were doing, because they started off by beating up these jokey tag teams, and then there was a segment where this all turned for me. There was a segment a few months ago on Dynamite where the Outriders randomly came out to shake hands with FTR.
Oh,
and that should have been the cue for the Death Riders to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Beat the living daylights out of the Outriders and just sort of ignore FTR, nod to them, and then walk away. And that would have completely solidified what they were trying to do. Get rid of the jokes, and the people who take wrestling seriously, they don't have a beef with them. And then we could have continued along what would have made sense as an angle. The Outriders were so popular then that really would have cemented them as heels, beating up on the Outriders. And leaving FTR alone drives home their message of, we're just here for the people who are jokes. Outrunners, not Outriders.
Outrunners. I was to say Outrunners. Yeah. That's what I thought you were saying, but I was
and
Zach caught it, but I was thinking the same thing. I knew what you were saying.
But
I was so confused. I've been wondering this whole time.
the point is, it's like they had this idea for Moxley to get this group. And the group is badass, no question about it.
Marina's a badass.
Oh. This is the best. You thought Ricochet, that was the best he's done? This is the best Marina's ever been in any promotion. It's just, she's legitimately terrifying.
She's fantastic. She's never done anything else, so the bar is low. But she is, set aside whatever she's done in the past, this is a really good, an underrated. And you know what? It's the less is more. I will say, my favorite chapter was the 4 weeks in a row she yelled on the microphone nonstop. But other than that, no. She's good because she's understated. She gets that you can really portray a character through consistency. She has never said anything controversial online. She's never gone back after a segment and said, "Oh, I hope people liked what I said," and are all up. She knows her job is to portray a consistent character that fits within a certain faction and tell a certain story. She's the best part about that group.
And to be fair, she is married to somebody with a ridiculous mind for wrestling. He doesn't always show it, but Roderick Strong has one of the best minds for this business.
Oh, they're married?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that. I don't know how I missed that.
They have a kid together. Yeah.
Okay.
When Roderick is ready to retire, he's going to be a great coach. I wouldn't be surprised if he's coaching her on how to play this role, because she's just been phenomenal in it. And the best part of the group, honestly. Well, Parker's been really good too. I think he's shown more character development in this group than he's ever shown. But Moxley's he's been all over the place. They didn't have a clear path for this angle when it started, and that's become evident the longer it's gone on.
And Chris, even better, they have the trios titles too. They get to defend those.
Oh god!
Did you know they even had those?
I was trying
I
to
didn't know
forget.
they had them. I did because I knew they defended them just recently. But I don't know. I mean, I just like I said, there's good things about the show. But Wade, we got to talk about it. I know you're trying to evade it, but we got to talk about it. I mean, the end of the show was I mean, did it feel consequential at all to you when you watched that match? Were you thinking, man, I got to know who wins this match because I got to know who faces Takeshita next week?
I was so hoping they were just going to end with a match and just end. Like, it's like, oh, it's like 30 seconds past the top of the hour. Just to hit the reset button on like the notion that not every show is going to end with some big angle. But of course, you had to have the presupposition or whatever of the in-ring promo, which leads to an angle. But even at the end, I mean, they're all just standing there, and it's like, nice try. I mean, I say nice try, but if you transcribed me, someone could honestly think I'm not saying it with that tone. Like, nice try. Like, there's a path. They're trying to get to it. They're introducing the notion that maybe the champ won't be the champ by the time we get to the pay-per-view. It just isn't end of show stuff, but you got Kenny and Takeshita involved, and so it sort of is, but the angle and the stakes aren't, in part because championships don't mean enough, and also because Kenny is still a little awkward. Like, just staring at the belt longingly is just sort of this trope, and why is he staring? He's way above that being something he longs for, the way he looked at it. Like, oh, if I could just someday be international champion, I would feel complete. Like, nobody buys that, but that's the look he was giving the belt. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of picking on it a bit, but it's a 52-week-a-year show. It's one show ending. I don't think it's a make or break moment for AEW. They tried, and I don't think it was a negative. I just don't think it was a positive. Sean, your body language says you don't agree?
No, I don't. I just your match is Omega Takeshita. Like, this is just a random thing you're just doing just to delay the inevitable. If we want to see Omega Takeshita, we don't. No offense to Orange Cassidy, he's been great in AEW, but he's been gone for 6 weeks. We had no idea why he was gone or what happened. They just said he's going to be in a freaking international series match. Other than the fact that we know he won the international title, he's been the champion a couple of times. But again, this title doesn't mean anything. But he's had it a few times. And we know Roderick Strong's had the title before, but none of them have done anything to earn the title, and they just put him in a random match. And that's what it just, the logic's not there. I mean, they're trying to, but it's just you're delaying the inevitable. Just start building to Omega Takeshita. That's what we want to see. You only have 3 weeks to build to it anyway. Yep. So just now it's like 1 week is they're going to build for it.
That is an option. That is definitely an option.
So I actually had to do some thinking as to why this was the main event. And like, Orange Cassidy was a big star for a while.
Yeah.
But I think the last time we saw him, he was getting bleach poured down his throat or chemicals poured down his throat. It
was touch and go for a while. It was touch and go, but he's fine.
That water was really dangerous. But they made absolutely nothing out of the fact that this guy that everybody loved for so long was coming back after a 6-week absence. Like, do you not want to sell that? If that's your main event,
that's a good point.
Shouldn't you be promoting that Orange Cassidy is back and he's wrestling tonight?
Yes.
The match itself was good. There was nothing else on the show that should have main evented. I have to wonder if maybe they thought they could make Hobbs and Big Bill the main event, and then they realized that match was just going to be the most boring thing ever and decided to call an audible. But the post-match almost completely undid any positivity that we had from Orange Cassidy coming back, because he felt like an afterthought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you could say Orange deserved better than this, and I think that's fair. Zach Barber says, you totally missed the point, Wade. He wants the belt because Takeshita has it, and he wants to prove he's better than Takeshita. I mean, I don't know if that's totally missing the point. I just don't think that's enough for him to stare longingly at the title. And like, because you can't say the truth if you're the commentators, which is Kenny's achieved bigger things than this, third from the top belt in our company. But because he's going to take it from Takeshita, who Don Callis is managing, it's going to all be worth it in the end. But that is the undercurrent here, and that's I mean, I having Kenny focus on being world champion and only that is probably where Kenny belongs at this point. Like, I don't need Roman Reigns trying to win the U.S. title because he never has. Whatever. Like, yeah, when you get to the top, yes, you don't aim lower, and that's kind of what this is. It's part of the idea of Tony's booking philosophy, which is, I think, undeniable, which is it's nice to have a shortcut to make a match feel important because a belt is on the line. So why would we stop at 1 or 2 or even 3 belts when we can have 4 or 5 or 6, like all these shortcuts just to make a match more important? So, in Standard Deviation says the only interesting possibility for Kenny winning the international title is a prospective title versus title with Okada at All In.
Yes.
If it leads to a merging of the titles and that's a mission statement and that's where we're heading, sure.
I mean, I was calling for that last year when Ospreay had the title and was going after it. I was calling for him to combine them all.
Yeah.
I almost agree with Zach. Zach, the only thing I would change is he wants the title because Takeshita has it, and he doesn't want Takeshita to have anything, which is to me enough of a motivation to go after Takeshita and take the title. But then why does he look at the title like it's something he cares about? I think the fact that Orange Cassidy is kind of shunted off to the side is a bigger deal than people are saying it is, because like Orange had a world title match that some people had thought he might have a chance to win. And he goes away for 6 weeks and comes back and is now sort of like in the background of this match that, to be fair, everybody wants to see. Not just because it's a dream match, but we know Kenny Omega, we know Takeshita, they have bodies of work in AEW.
Yeah.
And it is not a stretch to say this is a match that everybody is excited to see. I think that's a fair statement. But then why do we need all this unnecessary garbage in between?
Couple other chat room comments. Sadler version 3, Chris says, I don't even want Omega Takeshita because I don't want him in a useless mid-card belt. I want him to end the Mox reign. And Kyle Fassel says, when I first heard about Kenny in New Japan, he came off like a video game character and larger than life. He needs that aura around him again. Things he did tonight makes him run away from that aura. Fan Blast says Kenny needs to beat Moxley, the Dynamite after Revolution, and take that title. Pull the plug on the Death Riders then. That's a Bill Watts UWF TV show where he just blew up changed every belt on one show, turned people, just changed everything. He's like, all right, it's like, when a basketball team just trades like 6 players all at once on trade deadline. Just blowing up the world title picture would be something.
Too soon.
Kyle Fassel says Kenny should have been in the title picture when he came back. Then Takeshita goes after him when he's the new AEW champ. Better for everyone.
I still think Darby needs to win that title. I don't think it should be Kenny.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I think there's maybe a layer of facetiousness, which is just like, let's get this Mox thing over with, more than that's the best plan of all options. If I'm to guess and my hunch on the framing of that comment. Did I read this? Kyle Fassel said, I already did. Okay, yeah, the video game character. Yeah. So, Standard Deviation just says they've earned my faith after the last few months, and that's kind of a big picture thing. Is AEW, even with our critiques, which are not done out of malice, we don't have stock in the company, we're not on their payroll either, but obviously we just want to, we want to see a wrestling show that's refined and entertains us and grows and pro wrestling to succeed, whatever brand they are. And being apologetic and turning away from critiques because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. These are grown men, in one case a billionaire. They should be able to handle some honest critique. You don't have to agree with all of it, and we don't even agree with each other on some things. But do you broadly agree that AEW is better? I don't know if the last 3 months, maybe the last 3 months. Time is kind of hard to track in some ways in life, but I do think things are better than they were 7 months ago and 11 months ago. I think there's a general week-to-week vibe that through happenstance and accident or deliberate, turning the ship in the water in the right direction slowly, or the talent is, having Kenny back is fresh and some of the talent they're pushing and, the absence of Scissor Me Daddy. And I mean, like there's been some subtraction too that I think makes the product feel better, even with some of our critiques. Chris?
Yeah, I think they're definitely getting their ducks in a row, and they're starting to. An absence of irritants, as a very wise man just once said. they're starting to take away some of the things that were turning people off, and we're starting to see possibly the fruits of some of the labors and some of the long-term seeds that have been planted are starting to now flower. And it has improved. I'm not quite ready to say I have faith in them and that I trust them to do things.
No,
but I'm getting to that point. I'm almost to the point where I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I need a couple more months of this continuing.
That is totally fair. To say you want to see more evidence before even floating that as something more than happenstance and selective evaluations, I guess. Yeah. Sean, I've been on a long time. Anything else you wanna bring up?
Well, I just wanted to say. We talked about a lot of. There was positive, but again, there's still, to me, as if we're looking at the whole, I still think there's more negative on this show than there was positive. I think there's good things on the show. Like there's like Bane is doing some good things, but the booking is more my issue. Is like the characters are getting better, but the booking is still not where I want it to be, and I think it has a lot of improvement. And going back to the Don Callis family, so we had Cage and Archer just do the little thing backstage. Oh, they're going to go against the Hurt Syndicate. Okay, they're going to lose. And the Don Callis family guys just lose. So they're going to go against Hurt Syndicate. It's going to be a fun match, but they're going to lose, which is fine because I like Hurt Syndicate. They're doing good, better in AEW than they were in WWE. But then you have, Takeshita, who everybody's saying he's in a great spot. I don't know if I agree he's in a great spot. We know how good he is. He has great matches. He's with a heel faction, but he just lost the tag team match. He didn't. Yeah, I think he got pinned in the tag team match. I don't know who he's beaten that's really that big time lately. And he's going to lose most likely to Omega at Revolution, most likely. And Fletcher, to me, they had a chance to pull the trigger. If you're going to push him to that level, just have him win the Continental Classic and be the Continental Champion. But no, they didn't. They had him lose to Ospreay. And then they're going to have him lose to Ospreay most likely again at Revolution. And it's like the Don Callis family, we keep saying they're in a good place, but they're all still losing most of the time. And it's like you can't get heat when you just continuously lose. I don't know how, as good as Don Callis can talk, and he's good on commentary and all that, yada, 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 these guys have to eventually get some wins if we're going to make them, again, we know how good Takeshita and Fletcher are in the ring, but they're still losing a lot, and Fletcher had the chance to be pushed, and they didn't push him. And then you said, Wade, and I agreed with you, if you're going to go with them, and he didn't.
Chris, body language tells me you got something to say here.
They're in a tricky spot. I wouldn't be so sure that Carl Urban, Brian Cage, and Lance Archer are going to lose. I think there's a possibility that they win.
I'm not against that.
No, me neither.
It's almost too late, but it's not. Almost is a key word. I think the story of them being together as a tag team elevates them beyond their individual win a squash, lose to a big star pattern that they've each had the last couple of years.
Fletcher's 100% losing, and I could toss a coin on Takeshita and Omega. I do want to point out, though, Gabe Kid lost to Kenny Omega and is now a bigger star than he's ever been. Mm-hmm. In New Japan recently, there's a guy named Bolton Oleg who's fresh out of the academy, still got green on his tights, lost a match to Takeshita on Tuesday last week and looked like $1 million in that loss. Losses aren't always a sign that you're not getting pushed. Right. It depends on how you lose, right? Mm-hmm. So I think both of those matches, the Takeshita, Omega, and Fletcher and Ospreay, they're going to be phenomenal matches, and neither of them is going to be a squash. So the people who lose could still end up looking great in those matches. Takeshita, by default, is in a great spot because he's earning 3 paychecks. But he is in this tricky position where he's in a stable with a guy at the same level as him, who is the same age roughly as him, who has most of the same characteristics as him, but speaks perfect English. So you've got this really tricky situation where you can't really push the two of them because they're in the same stable, and inevitably that would lead to a conflict. So unless you're going to take one of them out and turn them face, which probably has to be Takeshita at this point, They're both, you can't have them both in the primacy of that stable. So, we'll see how that develops. I think it's inevitable that they end up feuding, but that's will be how we know that they want to give them both a run. Takeshita, though, with his 3 contracts, you can't really push him too hard because he has obligations everywhere. So he's not going to be there year round.
Yeah,
it's you speak the truth, but it does. I don't know. It's such a compromise because do you push somebody who you really believe in, but you don't get them full time, and or you're better off picking somebody a little less, but available for you in every way that you need them. I just don't know if he's I don't know, or just make it worth his while if you can. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, okay. I mean, we're running along. I want to wrap up here pretty imminently. Sean, any closing words?
No, Wade, thank you for giving me the time. I really appreciate it. Chris, it's been
we don't
a blast,
get to talk Dynamite too much with you, so.
No, I thank you for letting me do it. This is always a blast. Chris, it's always fun talking to you, man, and
man.
I'll be on here hopefully soon.
Cool. Thanks, Sean. Always good hearing from you. Chris, is there anything else from tonight's show? I haven't. This time just breezes by. It's a lot of fun doing this, but I haven't tracked and we go live right afterwards. I don't have time to have a game plan. I try to create one in my head. There's times I don't know what the first subject's going to be until my first word comes out of my mouth. In the kind of the A block, 2.5 hours ago. So anything else you want to bring up that maybe is missed out on?
I got some speed runs here I can go through.
Yeah.
We can pretend this is from JD in Detroit. The last time Kip Sabian wrestled on Dynamite was October 4th, 2023.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
What went wrong with that guy? He seems to have the tools. I know he had some injury concerns, but he's not young anymore, but he's an attractive guy. He's good in the ring. He can cut a good promo. He seems to have good gimmick ideas. That whole thing with the box on his head that he was doing in the audience for a long time. I thought all of that was just really good, but he's never been given a chance to do anything, not even at a lower level. It kind of bugs me. I don't know if you've heard anything on him.
No, I haven't heard, but I thought, I thought when AEW first started, he was going to be a bigger thing.
Yeah.
And I think he's in a good role now. I like the dynamic. It's the natural rivalry with Nick Wayne, and that can develop, but they're not rushing it, which is good.
Yeah. I really like what they're doing. The Hangman MJF thing, we talked about the promo, but I like that match it's a straight match. It's a one-on-one match. There's no frills. There's no gimmicks.
Oh, just give them a week or two, Chris. Sorry.
They're not, out loud saying it's a number one contenders match. It's just, this is happening, and it's a one-on-one match, and they're just going to beat the tar out of each other. And I just like that. That's good, simple, wholesome wrestling booking. Mm-hmm. The Jericho promo tonight came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like they're abandoning the learning tree, but he did refer to himself as the learning tree. But
why do you think they're abandoning it?
Because he at the end he said he didn't have anyone with him. There was no Bill. There was no Brian Keith. And then he said, "I'm Chris bleeping Jericho." It wasn't the New York Minute. There wasn't any hi guys.
True. Yeah.
It was a lot more edgy. It felt like he's almost trying to become like a "Do you know who the heck I am" type of character. Because he's about to go on tour with Fozzy or probably something along those lines, and he needs to reinvent himself again. The street fight was heavily medium. Could have done without it. The Gabe Kid video. Oh, be still my beating heart. I am to Gabe Kid as Rich Fan is to Sonata. He is probably my favorite wrestler right now. He's got all of the charisma. He's just incredible in the ring as well. He's still a little green in places. His issue has been he doesn't have a filter. And he said some stuff on the mic in interviews that has come across as incredibly anti-AEW, and in some cases kind of questionable in terms of should I actually be saying this out loud. If they gave him a promo before he appears on Collision, which is what we've been asking for, so kudos for that. It's worth pointing out, though, his contract is up in AEW, at New Japan. They do expect him to resign. He is Mr. New Japan right now, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if him coming over right now isn't some sort of precursor to try and work out a sort of a similar agreement to what Takeshita has, where he can do both. Because he needs to be he's got all the potential in the world, and I'm excited to see what he can do if he does come over on a more long-term basis.
What do you let me ask? What do you like about him? There is what is he? Do you compare him to another wrestler? Does he have a trait that word unique is sort of an ugh word? It's overused, but does he have a distinct trait that will make him stand out because he feels so legit, like MMA badass type persona? You'd more see it there, or is it more an old school heel, or what? What is it that you would highlight?
It's like if Jason Statham and John Moxley had a love child. Vinnie Jones is an even better comparison.
That was option 3 I was about to say.
I'm not sure how many people know who he is. I mean, I'm probably the only one who thinks Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is a cinematic masterpiece. However, he's not quite soccer hooligan type of character, but he's very brash. He's very out there. I've heard rumors that he's a madman. He only says it about 18 times a match.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a very strong style, very aggressive, physical character. He can go in the ring. He does have technical chops, but he's not on the level of the majority of the people that New Japan puts out there. He's a very smash mouth, straightforward guy. He oozes charisma, though. He commands attention. He draws the eye, even when he's just standing on the apron. He can cut a good promo. He's going to have to tone it down because they actually encourage the foreign wrestlers to swear in Japan, and he's not going to be able to do that on Collision or Dynamite. But he makes you want to watch, and he makes you want to see what he's going to do next.
Cool. Those are good traits to have. Yep.
Yeah.
Good traits to have. Anything else, Chris, on your agenda?
No, that's that. I just wanted those sort of quick hitters. Apart from the fact that JR did say that Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong have similar skill sets, and I'm like, in that they both can walk on 2 legs. But
yeah,
it is
all
what
right,
it is with him.
Two short emails from the mailbag that are completely different than anything we brought up. So I'm gonna read them both to close things out here. Milo in LA says, "Why exactly are MJF and Hangman fighting? To me, to be the main character in the story. So isn't that being the champion? So why do neither care to fight Mox and instead of WWE cast off Edge? Are they fighting to be the captain of AEW, a la Aaron Judge as the Yankees captain? Again, so why do neither care about Mox or the Death Riders? Is MJF jealous the AEW fan base forgave all the crazy stuff Hangman does, but they don't forgive him? So I'm rooting for who there? The AEW fan base accepts MJF. MJF isn't as real as Adam Page. Honestly, Adam Page just screamed his promo like a nasty boy, while MJF has always been fake. Is Adam Batman and MJF is the Joker and neither care about the AEW title because they love AEW? Also, MJF, my favorite wrestler is Gunther. When did you beat him? Also, remember MJF said, I beat all your favorite wrestlers. Also, this arena just looks ECW level small. I'm watching people find their seats while MJF is talking. Besides Zach Barber, did anyone else like this? Milo in LA. Harsh words from somebody watching on Max out in LA because of the live feed, I assume. What do you think about Milo's framing of things?
I think he's making some good points, but they are kind of grasping at some straws. I did like most of the show. A lot of the stuff that I've been picking on, I actually think is either fairly minor or a more overarching problem. The show didn't feel particularly eventful or special or anything, but I think it was a good sort of maintenance show. As for the MJF and Hangman thing, I mean, they did a pretty good job of explaining why they're fighting. Hangman has been accepted by the fans despite being arguably a horrible person. MJF, arguably a horrible person, has not. And MJF is jealous of that. Meanwhile, Hangman hasn't had the success that MJF has had, and Hangman is jealous of that. So you've got these two people who each want what the other one has had, and they can't fight for the title right now because somebody else has that shot, but they can fight to be next. and they haven't expressly said that, but there's not really anybody above them on the card who could step up and say, I have a better claim to a title shot than one of these two do. So, I think they've sort of been, they're both originals. They've been around since the start of the company. They've never really crossed paths for an extended time, but they have enough history that they have a reason to be fighting each other.
Yeah, I think that's a fair counter to Milo's. But I think there's things that Milo wrote that should, or Milo, I don't, that they should, that you want to be cognizant of, which is, yes, there's only so many titles to go around, but make sure that if what you're fighting about feels epic enough in the way that you frame it, that it doesn't prompt people to wonder, well, why not go after the world title? What is this mystical team captain, or I think it's a fair, good faith critique of one way to interpret it, that they should be careful to make sure they don't go too far down the road of things that are as sort of abstract as the things that they're talking about. I guess in trying to give credit to it, my pushback is mostly what you said, Chris. I mean, these are two characters with a rich history, a long history within canon of AEW, recent and going back 5+ years. And they were talking about that, and they were doing so in a way that was faithful enough to what we've witnessed, that it rang true. Okay. Finally, Rob emailed and said, as a former teacher, AEW's excessive profanity reminds me of teens swearing nonstop to seem cool or mature. It just feels forced and thus even more juvenile. Current WWE and past AEW have both shown you don't need it to tell compelling, mature stories. As the product is now, I can't watch AEW with my kids, they're 2 and 5, who love wrestling, have been to local shows, and play with their AEW and WWE figures every day. Given AEW's declining numbers, alienating potential fans seems unwise. AEW is going to be in town next week, but I don't think I'll be buying tickets after feeling like I should turn off the show tonight. In fairness to AEW, are they marketing to 2 and 5-year-olds? I mean, I think they would say they are excluding them from their marketing as a deliberate strategy to try to counter the John Cena era. One might argue Tony Khan is fighting a war that has ended, and there's a whole new opponent that he hasn't adjusted to. But they are not going after kids, and I don't think they're, worried.
I mean, are they marketing at all, really?
Okay. Are they presenting a product that they expect will resonate with?
Yeah.
I don't think they expect. They don't expect families to bring kids. Like that. That's not what they're going after. WWE has that market. They really do. I don't know that AEW should be trying to compete there.
They're going after the Attitude Era market. That's what they want to be, is Attitude Era wrestling, and they know how to. Well, they think they know how to do that, but the swearing sometimes does feel unnecessary. And, we've talked ad nauseum about the bitchometer, and, reset it again. Although I think Tony Storm's use of it was in context, and
I did not reset the bitchometer explicitly in my TV report. I left it ambiguous, up to people to decide whether I felt they should or not. I would say that is I'll just say that is an example of why almost no one else should be saying it, because that is the character who should say it, and the context you should be saying it. When I'll just pick on Hobbs. When Hobbs goes, and I'm going to make you my bitch. It's like, what is this, a 1985 movie with, like, come on. I mean, like, there's other ways to communicate. And I'm not even saying like that's not authentically something he might say, but it's like it does come across as the obvious low-hanging fruit to grasp when you're cutting a promo about getting into a fight with someone. And I'm just saying, search for other options. There's other ways to approach a promo. And if everyone can justify it individually, if so many people are doing it, it loses its punch. So everyone should get together and say, let's let Tony Storm say that. Let's let Swerve say it in a certain context. But everyone else, let's see if there's a better or suitable replacement for it, so it's not being oversaid. And that's my whole point with the bitchometer. Just it loses its edge when everyone's saying it.
I'm trying to think back on the people who swore tonight. I'm probably missing some, but Tony Storm, it worked. MJF,
cowboy shit.
Cowboy shit is the fans.
Well, I know, but MJF encouraged it. He said it got bleeped, and then the crowd did it. So,
but the fans created that themselves, I believe. But MJF called them dipshits, and we had Chris effing Jericho. None of those individually is unnecessary. They all made sense in the context of the promo and the context of the show and what they're trying to get over. When you put it all into the same show, I can understand how some more conservative, small c, people might find that too much. When swearing is forced, it does feel awkward. I didn't feel like any of it was forced tonight.
Right.
But it's a cumulative effect.
Yep. And that's the thing. A lot of things make sense if you're not paying attention to the rest of the show and the rest of the product week to week. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm not a prude about it. I just want when it use it, I want it to work. I want it to have impact. And I don't think there's any denying bitch was just the go-to word for WWE and AEW for months and months and months. And it was that's what begat the bitchometer. I think we're better. I don't think tonight was egregious. And I just, with all due respect to Rob, I think he's making a good choice by not taking his kids to an AEW show. But I also, at the same time, don't think AEW should adjust their products so that he can. I actually think the swearing in a variety and a context of in a mix of contexts is more of a value to AEW than they're driving away by the dads who want to bring 2-year-olds. I think on balance, they're better off having that Attitude Era edge.
Also, I've heard holy shit chants at WWE events. You can't control what the crowd does, even if you control what your product does. So if you're trying to avoid your kids hearing swear words, you're not going to be able to at a wrestling show.
I'm David Bryan says, you know what I've always thought AEW was missing? 2-year-olds.
Well, if you're a 9-year-old, you can win the tag team titles in WWE, so it's not far off.
Yes. Zach Barber in the hashtag missing the point completely department that he visits every now and then goes, Wade, have you ever watched an episode of The Sopranos? LOL. Sadler version 3 says, I think at times
relevance.
I know. I think at times Sadler version 3 says, I think at times they've gone overboard with cursing, but that hasn't been the case lately. Yeah. But the most important thing we'll end with this, Chris. The security abuse-o-meter. I was thinking, oh my God, we're going to get through a segment and that security aren't going to get beat up. This is how you do it. And then Hangman just completely needlessly just started attacking the security guards, and they all took bumps for him, and it just the whole trope got done again. Kyle Fassel says, yes, we need a security abuse-o-meter. Sean says we need to stop beating up security in both companies. It's just dumb. It's not, it just doesn't make sense, and it's overdone. Like, why should that be okay? They did nothing, and they just started getting punched by a babyface.
The very first line on my notes, those poor security guys, when did they ever work to stop anything? And that was before they even started the segment. It was during the entrances.
Yeah.
What I really want to see at some point is to have a guy who was a security guard in a couple of segments as an extra sign a contract and then have wrestlers constantly refer back to how easy he was to beat up when he was a security guard. I think that would be hilarious, but that's just my weird sense of humor. You're muted.
Yep. I had to get it in. I hadn't yet all show. I got to keep my streak alive. Ramen Noodle says, F the security guards.
Yeah.
And then Zach says, Mox spit in his face. Someone had to catch Hangman's fury. You know what? Everyone could beat up security guards. I just want there to be ramifications. These are guys who are hired hourly wages. They're doing their job, and the announcers are like, well, it's just, do they sign a release going, you're going to get beat up tonight by doing exactly what we're paying you to do? Like, it's just dumb. It's overdone. They are the stormtroopers of pro wrestling. Just no one cares when they get shot. There's bodies laying everywhere. All right. Thanks, Chris. I don't know why we, past 2.5 hours every time we do this, but it feels like 45 minutes or an hour.
I just like talking. I don't know what to say.
Thanks. Fun show. Thanks, chat. Thanks for getting work. I got all worked up. Got to yell at people who normally I like. Standard deviations, usually the hero in the chat for me, and I just went after him. Ramen Noodle, we go at it. But it isn't fun. I mean, we keeping things in context. But I'm more proud than I think most people are of my restaurant dirty table analogy. I'm standing by it despite the criticism. I'm going to be stubborn about that. All right. Thanks, everybody. I guess I'm. Please like the show. If you made it this far, my God, take a second and like it. Comment below. We had like a stretch where I said, hey, let's make this a week everyone comments. And then we had more than usual. And then I stopped saying it and no one's commenting. So I know it helps with the algorithm and stuff. Someday we'll figure that out and do better. And subscribe to our channel. Set that alarm bell so you know when we're going live. Also, search PWTorch in your podcast app to subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast lineup. Free news shows with different hosts every day of the week on different topics. And then also on the audio side of things, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our podcast. Search Wade Keller. Subscribe to the Red Logo Show and the Blue Logo Show. The Blue Logo Show is not on YouTube at all. You're missing the flagship of Jason Powell and our pay-per-view previews and some great flashbacks and big-name interviews. And then also the Red Show includes some flashback shows and things that do not appear on YouTube too. So it's worth subscribing to both. And all you have to do is search Wade Keller and subscribe. And finally, go check out my written report on Dynamite. Same thing for Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-views and PLEs. PWTorch.com. I write live pay-per-views, pay-per-view reports, and TV reports on that website. There's a lot of other cool stuff. Earlier today, I put up my 30 years ago Raw report. It's super fun to see how different Raw was 30 years ago. King's Court with Shawn Michaels, and it's a very different world. It feels so small and simple back then, how they put Raw together, but it's fun to look back and what I was saying about stuff on Raw 30 years ago. I've been doing this a long time.
Manhattan Center then, wasn't it? 30 years ago.
Well, they did once. They did the first show there.
Yeah.
The 30 years ago. Here, bring it up in the flashbacks here. Yeah. Oh, it's Diesel defending the WWF title against Jeff Jarrett in the main event on Raw 30 years ago this week. And my full match report: Jeff Jarrett challenged for world title 30 years ago on national cable. Eli and Jacob Blue won a squash match. Bret Hart was awarded the prestigious WWE Magazine Award of the People. He was given a trophy and gave an acceptance speech. Jerry Lawler interviewed Shawn Michaels, and then Sid was introduced as his bodyguard. Jim Cornette was introduced as the co-host with Vince McMahon of the show. So seriously, fun flashback articles. You're not going to find them anywhere else, and I write most of them, the 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago ones, but there's a variety of other people writing them too: Greg Parks, James Caldwell, Sean Radican. So check that out. And email the show. Let us know what you think. Give feedback. If you have anything negative to say, send it to me. I'll read it. If it's positive, then post it publicly by all means, and give us a 5-star rating wherever you're watching or listening to us. We appreciate that. Chris, anything you want to plug before we sign up?
Yeah, check out everything we do for New Japan, 7-Star Podcast with me and Kelly. I'm often on Radican Worldwide talking New Japan as well. And normally the same day or just after the recaps and reports are up for New Japan shows. If you are not a New Japan fan, I do often try to give you some background into why things are important. My writing style and my recap style is very different from Wade's, but I think some people might enjoy it. It's a little more jokey than Wade's is. Let's put it that way. But I try to bring you into the arena and as if you're watching the match, sitting down with me eating nachos. So I enjoy writing them.
Yes,
and it's a different style, but you might get something out of it.
So to get the 7-Star Podcast, you got to be a VIP member. You can get a 7-day free trial at Patreon. Patreon.com/PWTorchVIP. You can get a 7-day trial through Spotify. Search PWTorch VIP on Spotify and activate that 7-day free trial. That unlocks the VIP feed, which includes this show and our free shows where the commercial breaks just get skipped past. You just jumped right to content. So that's nice. And then you can get a full VIP membership and unlock back issues dating back to the late 1980s. Tons of other stuff, including a customizable podcast feed that is compatible with the Apple Podcast native app and many other iOS and Android apps. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk to you next time.
Yes, pleasure.